Hearing Rin Shiyu's voice, Zhang Jing and Chu Songming were both stunned. They were soldiers. They were always the ones ordering others to drop their weapons. Never before had they been warned by a survivor squad like this. The AM-2 sniper rifle I was using was originally provided by them. I knew it very well, and Zhang Jing understood too. If they didn't stop, I would actually pull the trigger. Chu Songming snapped his head to look at Zhang Jing, his eyes bloodshot behind his glasses. Upon receiving my warning, he looked like a cornered beast. He couldn't stop the car, nor could he drop his weapons. Doing so would be no different from seeking death. In his mind, he was definitely wondering if I would spare him or not. Chu Songming and Zhang Jing immediately reached for their waists. Trying to draw their guns? Chu Songming didn't hesitate for even a breath. He pulled out a grenade, his cold eyes fixed on Zhang Jing. His other hand raised a pistol, pointing it straight at him. He enunciated every word slowly. Keep driving. Zhang Jing looked at him in disbelief. He was actually using a grenade to threaten them, turning everyone in the vehicle into hostages. Chu Songming's own thoughts echoed in his mind. We can negotiate. Military weapons. You guys would definitely be interested in those, right? He remembered Ren Shiyu's mental ability, understanding that she could transmit words directly into people's heads and also hear his thoughts. For a survivor squad, weapons were indispensable, and he believed I would be swayed. As long as I hesitated, he would buy himself time. Immediately after, Chu Songming turned to Zhang Jing and ordered in a low voice, Commander Zhang, order the military vehicles behind us to attack. Block them. He never intended to entrust his life to a negotiation. It was all just a stalling tactic so he could strike first. Zhang Jing was so furious he gritted his teeth. With my marksmanship and the Sure Ing squad's combat power, if he ordered an attack, who would bear the consequences? Commander Zhang. Chu Songming's finger was already on the trigger, his other hand gripping the grenade tightly. He knew the longer this dragged on, the greater the danger. I'll give you 5 seconds to decide. 5. At the same time, in the mining truck, Ren Shiyu relayed all his words to me. Hearing this, I just smirked and sneered. Make a deal with a guy like that? Whether he was being sincere or not, I didn't care. Besides, his words were a flat-out rejection of my warning. Since he refused to stop, then, I narrowed one eye, looking through the scope. My brain's ability activated. In my vision, the armored vehicle speeding at maximum velocity suddenly slowed down like a slow-motion movie. I locked onto the front tire of the Type 92 armored vehicle. Hitting the front tire of a vehicle moving at 85 kilometers per hour through a constantly shifting narrow gap was extremely difficult, but not impossible. My pupils contracted. Focus. Bang. A direct hit. Black smoke billowed from the tire. The entire armored vehicle swerved violently. Boom. Inside the vehicle, Chu Songming's body jolted violently along with the car. What happened? The driver's panicked voice rang out. The tire's been shot out. Chu Songming finally lost his composure. I actually shot. I didn't reply, I simply pulled the trigger. I didn't blink, firing a second shot. 2 consecutive bullets from the AM-2 completely shredded the tire. Even if it was the bulletproof tire of a Type 92 armored vehicle, it couldn't withstand 2 sniper rounds in the exact same spot. Black smoke spewed out, obscuring their vision. The wheel scraped harshly against the road, leaving 2 deep black skid marks. Screech. The armored vehicle came to a complete halt. This is your final warning, I said. Throw Chu Songming out here. 2 seconds. Otherwise, the next shot won't be aimed at the tires. Ren Shiyu immediately relayed the message. This time, it wasn't just to Chu Songming and Zhang Jing's heads, but to everyone in the vehicle. Cold sweat poured down Chu Songming's forehead. He had no hope left. I truly wouldn't hesitate to pull the trigger. But stepping outside to wait for death was something he was even less willing to accept. Zhang Jing, on the other hand, clearly felt the terrifying extent of my marksmanship. Even an armored vehicle was forced to a stop. He became even more determined not to let the military go to war with me. Because once shots were fired, the consequences would be irreversible. The other soldiers looked at each other, their eyes gradually changing. They realized that all of this was caused by Chu Songming. If it were an official military order, they would obey. But attacking my vehicle was entirely his own unauthorized action. Now, I was only targeting him. No one wanted to take the fall for him. Two soldiers exchanged glances and immediately opened the vehicle doors. "Don't you dare!" Chu Songming roared, but right at that moment, Zhang Jing shouted loudly, his body suddenly expanding. He forcefully knocked the gun in Chu Songming's hand aside. The bullet lodged into the back seat. Immediately after, Zhang Jing jumped out of the vehicle. I only gave them 2 seconds, and in exactly 1 second, everyone had abandoned the armored vehicle, leaving Chu Songming alone. Inside the car, his face was deathly pale, completely losing his calm demeanor. The tire was blown out, his weapons were useless. His hands holding the pistol and grenade trembled, cold sweat pouring down endlessly. Just moments ago, he wanted me and my teammates to wait for death amidst the mutant rats and the sea of zombies. But in the blink of an eye, the one waiting for death had become him. In Chu Songming's mind, countless thoughts flashed and then extinguished, leaving only vicious resentment. He knew I would kill him. He had no way out. "I surrender," he said in his mind. Immediately after, he stood up in the vehicle, holding up a notebook. As he spoke, he gripped the grenade tightly in his hand, looking toward the mining truck parked not far away. Due to the obstructed angle, he couldn't see me. "I understand your anger, but can you let me leave a few last words? My father only has one son. I just want to leave a note. You can check the contents. If I don't leave any message, my father will definitely investigate this matter to the end. He is a member of the Zhonghai Military Commission. Investigating this won't be hard for him." Driven to a dead end, it was a life-and-death feud between him and me. But he hadn't completely despaired yet, because he still had one last card to play: his father. Chu Songming's father had a huge say in the military. If I still wanted to return to the Zhonghai safe zone, I had to weigh these words carefully. The mining truck remained silent. Chu Songming breathed a sigh of relief. In his heart, he assumed his father had made me wary. As long as I was apprehensive about his father's status, he would have a chance to survive. He believed I wouldn't be crazy enough to kill a general's son, because the price to pay would be incredibly steep. Zhang Jing listened to everything in silence. If he were in my shoes, he would hesitate too. The Zhonghai Military Commission was the brain controlling the Zhonghai military, and Chu Songming's father was one of the commissioners, holding immense real power. No matter how strong I was among the survivors, facing such figures, I was still just an ordinary person. Ordinary people fear those in high power. That's common sense, especially in the pre-apocalyptic world. After the apocalypse, most officials lost their prestige, but this was a general of the Zhonghai military. The Zhonghai safe zone, in the eyes of many, was a special place. It was a rare haven to survive, stabilize, gather supplies, and continue evolving. It was also the only large, centralized settlement in the region. "Jiang Lushi, I know my previous actions put you in danger, but you're still alive. If you spare me, I'll compensate you. Mutant cores, mutant beast meat, weapons, ammo, fuel, I can provide it all. But if you shoot, the consequences will only be detrimental to you. Even if you return to the Zhonghai safe zone, you'll face countless difficulties." Before he could finish his sentence, bang! A gunshot rang out. His ears rang, and it seemed all sound vanished. In his blurring vision, he only saw a splash of bright red. Immediately after, a terrifying force knocked him flat on his back. Hot blood splattered all over his face. It was his own blood. Along with the blood came a terrifying sense of emptiness. His entire right side lost all feeling. Before he could comprehend what had happened, excruciating pain crashed over him like a tsunami. He screamed in despair, his body trembling. Only then did he realize his right arm was gone. The hand that once held the grenade was no more. Sniper rounds possess horrific destructive power. Once they enter a human body, it's a nightmare. The bullet had completely pulverized the bone, muscle, and blood vessels, blowing his entire arm away. The pain made Chu Songming scream incessantly. He no longer had the energy to care about the gun or the grenade. His body convulsed uncontrollably. As a soldier, he knew very well. On the battlefield, taking a bullet to any part of the body meant losing combat capability. If not treated in time, there was only one outcome: death. An arm was no exception. The blood in his body would quickly drain, his consciousness would unravel, and he would ultimately die in despair. Even when the zombie horde swarmed over, not even his corpse would remain. No. In pain and despair, his will completely collapsed. He had just seen a glimmer of hope, trying to stay calm. But in the blink of an eye, he was dragged deeper into hell. I didn't say a word, just quietly looked toward Zhang Jing. Zhang Jing looked at me, then at Chu Songming rolling on the ground, his heart turning ice cold. As a seasoned soldier, even he had to admit, I was too ruthless. Chu Songming had presented arguments sufficient to make anyone hesitate, but after hearing them, I still pulled the trigger. The sniper rifle remained pointed in this direction from the mining truck. Zhang Jing threw the gun at his waist to the ground, clearly showing he had no hostile intentions. This is a personal grudge between you two. Chu Songming violated discipline first. As the commander, I will not interfere. After saying that, he turned and walked straight toward the military vehicles. The armored vehicle was ruined. The military was forced to retreat using regular vehicles. Zhang Jing's attitude meant the military had completely abandoned Chu Songming and would not engage my squad. Chu Songming, Jiang Lushi, you guys won't have a good end. My father. He gritted his teeth, struggling to squeeze out fragmented words, but he no longer had the strength to stand up. Bastard, you're about to die and you're still putting on an act. At this moment, Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan jumped down from the vehicle. They had just been played by Chu Songming. If it weren't for me, these two would have died long ago. Their pent-up anger instantly exploded. Bam! Zhang Hai stepped forward, stomping hard on Chu Songming's face, roaring curses. Every stomp was so heavy that he could only groan. Sun Kuan also rushed up, kicking viciously at the wound that was still spurting blood. Chu Songming's face was deathly pale, cold sweat pouring down like rain. He no longer had the strength to curse or resist. He only felt the relentless blows raining down on his body. His consciousness gradually blurred. His weak screams made the onlookers shudder in fear. My squad was truly not someone anyone could casually offend. Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan kicked Chu Songming a few more times, only stopping when the anger in their hearts temporarily subsided. Zhang Hai looked at him lying flat on the ground like a dead dog and spat in contempt, his hatred still not fully quelled. He had spent so much effort modifying the freezer truck, wasting time and energy, yet this bastard dared to destroy it. We couldn't stay here too long. The zombie horde behind us was still approaching at an extremely fast speed. Zhang Jing also immediately ordered his soldiers to change the tires on the infantry fighting vehicle. As for the heavily damaged weapons on the vehicle, they could only wait until they returned to Zhonghai to be repaired. When the soldiers approached to check the tires, none could hide their astonishment at the precision of my marksmanship. Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan returned to the mining truck. As they got closer, the two finally felt the true disparity. Even tall men like them weren't as tall as one of its tires. Looking up, it felt like standing before a massive steel fortress. Compared to the minibus, this mining truck delivered a much stronger visual impact. The ordinary vehicles around it suddenly seemed tiny and comical. This was truly the product of an ability. Thinking about it carefully, if their abilities could evolve, then it wasn't hard to understand my mechanical modification ability evolving as well. This vehicle was probably the result of that process. The two took a few more looks at the truck before quickly getting on. When the mining truck started, Zhang Hai and Sun Kuan excitedly told Ren Xiyu and Jiang Zhuing about its massive appearance. Jiang Zhuing laughed and teased, saying that if it were peacetime, I would have definitely made a mountain of money. And she could just be a lazy salted fish. Let others rely on their parents. She would rely on her brother. Hearing this, I just shook my head helplessly. Jiang Zhuing turned to ask Ren Xiyu's opinion. After a moment of daze, Ren Xiyu smiled gently. She said that if it were peacetime and I had such an ability, not only would I make a lot of money, but I could even establish a corporation larger than the Ren Science Group. Jiang Zhuing laughed it off, saying she was just joking, while Ren Xiyu nodded, her eyes unconsciously looking toward me. She remembered very clearly the mining truck that had been dragged into the sea by the water monster at Jinling Port along with the cargo ship. She couldn't help but wonder, did I modify the vehicle based on the shape of that truck? I knew what she was thinking, but with her intelligence, she wouldn't ask. Everyone has their own secrets, and she chose to trust me. To her, just knowing I wouldn't harm her was enough. Everything she had experienced since the apocalypse began, especially Chu Songming shooting out the minibus's tires, made her understand even more clearly that after the apocalypse, The most precious thing was trust between people. When laws and morals were no longer enough to bind anyone, that trust became even rarer. I glanced at Renshiyu. Our eyes met, and she suddenly broke into a radiant smile. Her face, which usually carried a hint of melancholy, rarely showed such a smile. And I understood, it wasn't out of fear, but out of trust. I smiled back faintly. A rumbling sound echoed. Chu Songming's death didn't slow the convoy down for too long. We quickly continued our escape. Looking back, I saw his corpse had already been devoured by the mutant rats. Following that was a sea of pitch-black zombies rolling in like a tsunami. Up ahead, zombies and mutant beasts continuously appeared, all drawn by the noise of the horde. Before the vast sea of zombies, even the massive mining truck seemed small. Zombies and mutant beasts constantly slammed into the vehicle's body, creating dull thuds like rapid drum beats. Renshiyu looked back anxiously, while I remained silent. Before the zombie horde appeared, I had a feeling of unease. And when they actually swarmed in, that feeling became even more intense. Zombies didn't know fatigue, but their speed still couldn't match vehicles. They were gradually left behind. To ensure safety, the convoy drove at high speed for 2 straight hours until we stopped at an abandoned gas station by the road. The gas station had been drained of fuel long ago, but it was still a suitable place to rest and take care of personal needs. After the tense journey, everyone could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Wang Chuanfu had the Longyue squad park right next to the military vehicles. Sitting in his car, he looked at the massive mining truck, his eyes full of wariness. Previously, he had gifted cigarettes and alcohol to befriend me, but when the minibus's tires were shot out, they also immediately retreated. Although it was a normal reaction, he knew very well that regaining my goodwill was almost impossible. Even the military kept a polite distance from me, and at that time, only the freezer truck turned back to help. Wang Chuanfu suddenly muttered that perhaps there was no need to befriend us anymore. A subordinate smoking a cigarette heard this and blanked out, asking him to repeat. He talked about the Shi-Ing squad, his voice full of emotion, saying that no matter how strong a survivor was, they were still just human. Bare hands could hardly fight against authority. Even if Chu Songming's father couldn't cover the sky with one hand, and Zhang Jing could step up to protect us, would a father who lost his son really leave me in peace? Not returning to Zhonghai didn't mean we couldn't survive, but trying to develop would be incredibly difficult. Speaking of this, his gaze toward me shifted from wariness to pity. No matter how strong my squad was, once things were made difficult for us, life wouldn't be easy. He had wanted to cling to me, but right now, all he wanted was to stay as far away from us as possible. Since escaping the zombie horde, the journey back to the Zhonghai safe zone went quite smoothly, without encountering any more danger. The mining truck consumed too much fuel. Its body was massive, but the cabin wasn't spacious. Even though it had been modified by the Starseed, carrying so many people was still quite cramped and inconvenient, and there was no bathroom or cooking area. So when it got dark, I proactively switched the vehicle's form back to the minibus, while also repairing the damaged tires. As the Zhonghai safe zone gradually appeared before our eyes, Zhu Ying, half lying on the sofa and playing with a small knife, suddenly asked if I was still going back to the safe zone, then immediately sat up straight. I said we still had to go back, at least to restock on supplies. Even though I killed Chu Songming, he was the one who struck first. Even if he was someone from the military commission, they couldn't do anything to us inside the safe zone. The Shi-Ing squad wasn't made of unarmed civilians. We had guns, ability users, and a mobile base. If a conflict really broke out in the Zhonghai safe zone, it wouldn't be a small matter. It might even force the military commission to bear the responsibility. Reason was still on our side. I added, let's just see how the situation plays out. If things don't feel right, we'll leave. We don't rely on this survival zone. With the mobile base in hand, I'm not afraid of wandering through the apocalypse. Hearing this, Zhang Hai and Sun Kun laughed out loud, saying they would follow wherever I led. Rin Xiu also nodded firmly. By now, she clearly felt a strong bond with the entire squad. While everyone was still chatting, the convoy had approached the Zhonghai safe zone, and the sight before us made me freeze. Outside the city walls, a long line of Type 99 main battle tanks was neatly arranged. The vivid camouflage paint, the pitch-black gun barrels, and the thick, Heavy armor created an immense visual pressure. Main battle tanks were on a completely different level from Type 92 armored vehicles. Armored vehicles could be pierced by sniper rounds, but tanks were different. Even grenade launchers would struggle to break through armor equivalent to a meter of solid steel. However, the shockwave from an explosion could still damage crucial components, rendering the tank inoperable. When the apocalypse erupted, the military had almost no time to prepare. Even they couldn't have expected the disaster to come so quickly and fiercely. Therefore, the number of tanks deployed to the Zhonghai safe zone wasn't large. Most were still sitting in military bases, while fuel and ammunition were severely lacking. In the short term, the amount of ammo transported to the safe zone was very limited. If tanks were used for large-scale operations, tens of tons of ammo would quickly run out. Because of this, the military always kept these heavy weapons to protect the safe zone, rarely deploying them outside. But right now, rows of tanks appearing all at once clearly meant something major had happened. The thought of the zombie horde flashed through my mind. After passing the strict inspection and entering the walls, I even saw 2 large missile launcher vehicles. 8-wheeled camouflage chassis, the launch tubes already erected and pointing outward. To the Zhonghai safe zone, missiles were even more precious than tanks. Every single one was incredibly valuable. Currently, this place was severely lacking in weapons, ammo, and fuel. If military production couldn't be restored, wiping out the surrounding cities was almost impossible, especially when mutant zombies had appeared and zombie hordes were showing signs of organized behavior. During the medical check, I heard soldiers discussing that drones had spotted zombies and mutant beasts gathering near the safe zone. That was why they mobilized the heavy weapons. A veteran smoking a hand-rolled cigarette sneered, saying those monsters were nothing against missiles. If they dared to come, they'd just be blown to ashes. The other soldiers laughed along, looking relieved. These cold weapons clearly brought them a great sense of security. I silently confirmed it. It really was the zombie horde. Perhaps this phenomenon wasn't just happening in Tongnan City, but in many other places as well. But what made me uneasy was that ordinary zombies had no intelligence. They couldn't sense the existence of a safe zone from hundreds of kilometers away. This gathering was very likely controlled by mutant zombies. If there existed an entity strong enough to control such a massive number of zombies, just how terrifying of a threat would that be? Not to mention the giant mutant monster that had sunk the ship at Jinling Port. Thinking of this, my eyelid twitched slightly. I realized this disaster was far more terrifying than anything I had ever imagined. Before, because my risky ventures had gone quite smoothly, I had become somewhat overconfident in my own strength. But thinking back now, that strength was still not enough. Not only were humans evolving, but zombies and mutant beasts were constantly evolving too. I told myself I had to gather more mutant cores first, then upgrade the tires and reinforce the armor on the mobile base. The current tires were still too weak. Although they could withstand regular bullets, they absolutely couldn't hold up against machine gun fire. As I was entering the trading hall, in an isolated villa on the Zhonghai Safe Island, a man over 50, wearing a loose traditional robe with his white hair combed neatly back, was sitting at a writing desk. He held a brush over a foot long, dipped it in black ink, and wrote each stroke with powerful, decisive force. In the apocalyptic era, paper and pens were extremely rare items. Despite holding an important position, he rarely had the chance to use them. As the final stroke landed, a massive black character appeared on the white paper, sharply contrasting and full of killing intent. That character was Kill. The man over 50 was named Chu Zhongshan. He had a habit of writing calligraphy with a brush to keep his mind calm when facing troubles in the military and politics. Although the purpose was to cultivate composure, his handwriting was always sharp, rigid, and harbored a heavy killing intent. Right at that moment, knock knock knock, urgent knocking echoed, making him frown. He didn't like being disturbed while writing. "Come in," he said in a deep voice. A communications soldier rushed in, looking panicked. "Commander, something terrible has happened." "What is it?" "Speak calmly." Chu Zhongshan snorted coldly. In his mind, a terrible thing could at most be a zombie horde. The military region had prepared enough firepower. Anti-aircraft machine guns, large-caliber artillery, even Type 99 tanks and missile launchers were ready. As long as the zombies were still made of flesh and blood, They couldn't break through that dense network of firepower. Commander, your son, Captain Chu Songming, has sacrificed himself. What? Chu Zhongshan's ice-cold face momentarily shook. Songming is dead. He almost snapped the brush in his hand, staring intently at the communications soldier. What did you say? How did he die? Songming was his only son. He had arranged everything for his son to enter the core of the Zhonghai military region. To hold an important position, one had to go to the front lines and establish merits. That was an unspoken rule everyone understood. But he never expected him to die like this. He had been equipped with an armored vehicle. No matter how strong the zombies were, they couldn't bite through tank armor. The communications soldier recounted the entire incident. After hearing it, Chu Zhongshan closed his eyes, his eyelids trembling slightly. A long while later, he opened his eyes, his gaze freezing cold. So, you're saying Songming tried to use others as bait and was retaliated against and killed? Yes, sir. The pressure radiating from him made the soldier tremble in fear. I understand. He threw the brush away, ink splattering on the paper like drops of black blood. The soldier quietly backed out. Chu Zhongshan stood still for a long time, the wrinkles on his face deepening. Jiang Lushi, my son was in the wrong first, but it wasn't your place to punish him. At this time, in the Zhonghai safe zone, in the apartment assigned to me where I had only stayed for one night, I was sitting at the tea table with Xin Tao. He came to check on me, worried that after killing Chu Songming, living in the safe zone wouldn't be easy. I stated exactly what I needed: sniper ammo and mutant cores. As many as possible. Xin Tao owed me his life for saving him. What happened in Tongnan was unavoidable. Even though he was sold out by Chu Songming, he didn't plan on seeking revenge because it was his superior. But I was different. Xin Tao somewhat admired my freedom, where I could exact revenge fair and square. He said that as soon as he returned to the military, the ammo supply had been tightened, probably due to the zombie horde. 12.7mm ammo for the AM2 was even scarcer, but if it was just around 100 rounds, he could manage it. As for mutant cores, the military was collecting them to research evolutionary crystals. Buying them would cost more than the military's price. He was still speaking when violent pounding echoed from outside, as if someone was trying to break the door down. I frowned. Zhu Ying irritably went to open the door and saw a line of soldiers standing outside. Move aside, the cold-faced commander shouted, his face full of hostility. Who is Jiang Lushi? Zhu Ying raised an eyebrow, her hand instinctively reaching for the hilt of the knife on her back. I also immediately reached for my gun. Who are you? I asked, simultaneously noticing Shun Tao's expression didn't look right. Patrol squad, he whispered. The patrol squad was the military's guard force, executing duties like military police, arresting guilty soldiers, and organizing military courts to try war criminals. The Zhonghai Patrol Squad reported directly to the Guard Command, meaning the upper echelons of the military region. The captain of this squad was Chu Zhongshan's lackey. He already knew Chu Songming died by my hands. Moreover, he had been promoted by Songming in the past, so naturally, he hated me. Looks like you're Jiang Lushi. He had read my file. I kept my gaze calm, quickly assessing the patrol squad's strength in my head. If we were forced to fight, Zhu Ying's electricity could cause instant paralysis. With my speed and shooting accuracy, plusing hiding in the shadows, I was confident we could take them all down. Jiang Lushi, during the previous mission, an AM2 fell into your hands. Today, we're here to retrieve it. Hearing this, I raised an eyebrow. Mobilizing 8 people just to retrieve a single sniper rifle? And it's the patrol squad directly under the guard command? I guess this definitely had to do with Chu Songming. Earlier, when asking Xin Tao, I had also learned that his father was Chu Zhongshan. It was precisely because of his father's prestige that Chu Songming was able to build the Hurricane Squad and open an underground casino in Zhonghai. Without a powerful enough backer, how could such a large-scale casino exist for so long without anyone daring to touch it? Not to mention the massive profits that would make anyone drool. Inside the Zhonghai safe zone, Chu Zhongshan couldn't directly touch me for now, so he wanted to retrieve the sniper rifle first to make things difficult. Furthermore, the gun in my hands was a genuine threat. He already knew how terrifying my marksmanship was, and the security in the safe zone wasn't absolutely airtight. As long as I knew where Chu Zhongshan lived, I could completely take his life from thousands of meters away in the dead of night using a sniper rifle. For someone in Chu Zhongshan's position, he absolutely couldn't let such a threat exist. Brother Jiang, this. Xin Tao was somewhat flustered. According to Zhang Jing's words, that gun had been given to me, but clearly, Zhang Jing didn't have the authority to make that decision. It was very likely that because of that lack of consideration, he had been punished by his superiors. Xin Tao felt it was unfair to me, so he stepped up to speak on my behalf, saying that earlier in Tongnan City, the mutant zombie horde had blocked our escape route, nearly wiping out the entire squad. If it weren't for me providing sniper cover, the losses would have been incredibly heavy. Having the gun demanded back right after returning to Zhonghai, before even receiving a reward, was just too much. The patrol squad captain glared coldly at Xin Tao, looked at the rank on his shoulder, and said disdainfully that he was only following orders. Xin Tao had no right to speak. Right at that moment, hurried footsteps echoed from upstairs. Sun Kuan and Zhang Hai rushed down. Seeing the patrol squad, Sun Kuan's face darkened, directly asking who they were. The patrol squad captain's eyes grew even more annoyed, especially when he saw the two of them holding a skewer with a half-eaten roasted chicken. In the apocalypse, many people didn't even have food, yet they were leisurely roasting chicken. He himself ate very frugally every day. Seeing such a luxury made his mood even more irritable. He turned to me, shouting coldly that he was only executing orders, demanding I hand over the gun. Their patience was limited. Gun? You mean this one? As soon as I spoke, a Type 54 pistol instantly appeared in my hand, as if pulled from thin air. I leisurely spun the gun in my hand. The motion looked smooth and flashy, even though such things were completely useless in actual combat. The patrol squad captain's eyes widened in shock. He didn't expect me to dare draw a gun right in front of them. The anger inside him erupted. As an elite of the patrol squad who had received Special Forces training, he was very confident in his quick draw speed. Even though he knew he couldn't match my marksmanship, just drawing his gun first to suppress me mentally would be enough. In a split second, he drew his gun. But right at that moment, a strange sensation hit him, as if someone had touched his weapon. This feeling made him pause for a fraction of a second, but everything happened too fast. In less than a tenth of a second, he assumed it was just an illusion. The gun was in his hand. He instinctively racked the slide to chamber around. This motion was deeply ingrained in his muscle memory. However, the moment he finished, a chill ran down his spine. Wrong. The feeling in his hand was completely wrong. He looked down. Golden skin, greasy. It was a chicken leg. The entire room instantly fell dead silent. The entire patrol squad stared wide-eyed at their commander. A seasoned veteran, so familiar with firearms, yet he drew a chicken leg? No one could see clearly what had just happened. Xin Tao was also stunned, looking back and forth between the chicken leg in the captain's hand and me, unconsciously swallowing hard. Right at this moment, Zhuing burst into laughter, her clear giggles echoing through the apartment. The patrol squad captain's face turned as red as pig liver. He glared at Sun Kuan's roasted chicken and realized it was missing a leg. His gun had been swapped for a chicken leg. In front of his subordinates and a low-ranking officer he had just despised, right in this place, the patrol squad captain had made such an ugly fool of himself. If he had to choose the most embarrassing moment of his life, it was definitely this exact moment. He knew very well that the story of him drawing a chicken leg to threaten me, witnessed by a whole crowd, would quickly spread through the military. Even within the patrol squad, he had no shortage of enemies. Not to mention the soldiers following him today were mostly temporarily reassigned after the apocalypse. Once the rumor got out, he could almost imagine his new nickname. Something like Captain Chicken Leg. Just thinking about it made him want to jump out the window and be done with it. Sun Kuan and Zhang Hai finally snapped out of it. The two big guys laughed so hard they almost rolled on the floor. One was dangling a cool pistol, while the other jokingly asked if it was a McDonald's or KFC chicken leg. The two laughed uproariously, while Zhuing casually tore off the remaining chicken leg and took a huge bite. Her actions were somewhat unrefined, but paired with her red lips, it created a bizarrely contrasting charm. She finished chewing before slowly saying it was Daiko's chicken, just a bit too oily, so it got sickening fast. Sun Kuan and Zhang Hai then each grabbed a chicken wing, eating and laughing, saying their own roasted chicken was still the best. The patrol squad captain stood at the door, feeling like an absolute clown. They had come fully armed, intending to apply pressure, but ended up being treated like thin air. The other side was leisurely eating fast food and chatting. He wanted to draw his gun and shoot these people dead, but the gun was no longer in his hand. Although the soldiers behind him still had guns, he wasn't sure what the outcome would be if shots were fired. Recalling the moment his gun was secretly touched during his draw, his spine turned ice cold. The quick draw technique he was always so proud of was nothing but a joke in the eyes of the other party. He looked at me. I stood there, looking completely unguarded, spinning the pistol in my hand like a student spinning a pen. Yet the coldness that occasionally flashed in my eyes made him feel as if he were locked onto by an assassin. This person was truly terrifying. He had no doubt that if a fight broke out, this group chatting about fast food could slaughter the entire patrol squad in the blink of an eye. At this close range, they probably would have died countless times over. "My gun. Give it back to me," the patrol squad captain said stubbornly, even though he knew he had lost all face today. I feigned surprise, asking back if his gun wasn't still in his hand. His eyes turned red with anger, and the thought of risking his life to drag me down with him even flashed through his mind. Looking down, he realized he was still tightly gripping that stupid chicken leg. He quickly threw it away, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles cracked. Military firearms all had serial numbers. Losing a gun in the apocalypse wasn't a huge deal, but it still had to be reported. With a reason for losing a gun like this, reporting it would only make people laugh their teeth out. He gritted his teeth, saying he knew I had swapped his gun and demanded it back. He also emphasized that the sniper rifle must be retrieved according to superior orders. Military orders were like mountains. No matter how much face he lost, he had to do it. Because his backer was gone, if this task also failed, he might not even keep his captain's seat. I calmly said I had never seen his gun, and as for the sniper rifle, I had accidentally lost it while fighting zombies. I told them to go look for it along the road. Maybe they'd get lucky. The captain's face was flushed red, but he didn't dare charge into search. Even if he did, he didn't believe he'd find anything. In the end, he could only lead the patrol squad away in frustration. He came to retrieve a gun, but not only did he fail to get it back, he lost another one. Just thinking about it was enough to drive him crazy. They're all gone. Zhu Ying, while eating the roasted chicken, pulled out a completely clean chicken bone. Her small tongue lightly licked her pink lips as she said we had definitely pissed them off this time. I just casually replied that we had already offended them anyway. Shen Tao hesitantly spoke up. He was still reeling from my abilities, still not understanding what my power actually was. If it was mechanical modification, my marksmanship was too terrifying. If it was marksmanship, my speed was unbelievably fast. He advised me to be careful of Chu Zhongshan. After all, he was a high-ranking figure in Zhonghai. I nodded, asking him to help me inquire about buying sniper ammo. If there were special types like armor-piercing or incendiary rounds, even better. Shen Tao smiled bitterly, saying that getting steel-core armor-piercing rounds was already incredibly lucky. But after the apocalypse, ammo management was looser. Some soldiers hoarded ammo to trade for food. The price was high, but it could still be bought. After saying that, he lowered his voice and left. I took out the patrol squad captain's Type 92 semi-automatic pistol. Compared to the heavy weapons I had seen, these pistols were no longer appealing. Even a Desert Eagle was just a toy in the face of the AM2's power. I casually tossed the Type 92 to Sun Kuan, telling him to play with it. Sun Kuan worriedly said I had offended them to the point of no return. Keeping the gun was useless, but it made the other side lose face heavily. I shook my head. It was just a patrol squad. Lately, everyone was limiting their outings. If I went out, Rin Xiyu and Ying would go with me. With Xiyu's detection abilities and Ying's danger intuition, there wouldn't be any problems. I wasn't even afraid of assault rifles. Even if they used grenade launchers, Xiyu could sense them in advance, and I would kill them before they could fire. Unless they used missiles, but that was impossible. Although I wasn't afraid of Chu Zhongshan, his appearance still made me clearly feel a sense of impending danger. In District 1 of Zhonghai, I wasn't worried about what he could do to me. He didn't have that capability yet. However, if I left District 1 and stepped into the wilderness, as long as Chu Zhongshan could mobilize heavy weapons, like a Type 99 main battle tank, it would instantly become a life-and-death threat to me. A tank's main gun was no joke. Therefore, the first thing I needed to do right now was upgrade the mobile base. From the tires and bulletproof glass to the vehicle's armor, everything had to be comprehensively upgraded. The materials for the upgrade weren't hard to find, but the crucial issue lay in the mutant cores, which were in extremely short supply. Currently, Zhonghai City seemed to be besieged by a wave of zombies. Not only were there zombies, but mutant beasts were also lurking among them, posing a massive threat. Many survivor squads had drastically reduced their hunting trips outside. Even I felt that leaving District 1 at this time was extremely dangerous. I needed as many mutant cores as possible, but where was I supposed to get them? The military zone was researching evolutionary crystals, so their control over mutant cores was becoming increasingly strict. Buying them from survivor squads was expensive, and the quantity was very limited. When taking inventory of my assets, I realized the mobile base's storage mostly consisted of food and mutant beast meat. But compared to the value of mutant cores, these things weren't worth much. Frankly speaking, even if I traded all of it, it still wouldn't be enough. And I had to take on more missions to accumulate wealth. Of course, I still had a blood core from a level 1 mutant zombie. If I sold it, it would definitely fetch a huge sum, but I didn't want to touch it just yet. I estimated that relying on the mobile base's self-upgrade function to replace all the bulletproof steel with level 1 armor, and simultaneously upgrade the tires and bulletproof glass, I would need at least 15 to 20 level 1 mutant cores. That was a massive number. Moreover, this was just the minibus. The minibus and the mining truck shared the same armor strength. Currently, aside from the ramming bumper and the combat cabin which were equipped with level 1 armor, the rest of the minibus was still just bulletproof steel. The mining truck was much larger. If it used the same thickness of steel plates, its defensive capabilities would be weaker than the minibus. Once the minibus's level 1 armor was upgraded, the mining truck's armor strength would also improve. After all, the mining truck was just another form of the mobile base, transformed from the minibus, so the two vehicles shared armor durability. However, with the minibus weighing only a few tons, when it transformed into the mining truck, the amount of steel would increase to over 100 tons, causing the level 1 armor's defensive capabilities to be spread thin. Therefore, with the same thickness of steel plates, the mining truck was still weaker than the minibus. To upgrade the mining truck's armor to level 1, I would need a lot more mutant cores. If I could actually accomplish that, the mining truck would become an incredibly terrifying existence. With its massive size, its ramming force and defensive capabilities would be completely incomparable to the minibus. By then, the weight of this colossal vehicle would exceed 200 tons, enough to withstand a direct hit from a large-caliber armor-piercing shell. Of course, all of this was currently just my speculation. For now, I still had to carefully accumulate materials bit by bit. I couldn't help but sigh in regret. Back in Tongnan City, I had crushed several mutant rats. Even though they probably hadn't reached level 1 and their cores were only subpar, they were still mutant cores. If I had gathered them, they might have been enough to synthesize a level 1 mutant core. Thinking of that, I felt even more regretful. Currently, I only had exactly 1 mutant core. It wasn't even enough to upgrade the 4 tires. I'd just have to wait for this zombie wave to pass before going out hunting. Right now, I only hoped this zombie wave was temporary and would soon disperse. Otherwise, leaving the city would become increasingly difficult, and I would truly be at risk of running out of resources. Just as I was weighing all sorts of things, the apartment doorbell suddenly rang. I was slightly startled and instinctively glanced at Ren Xiu. With an enemy like Chu Zhongshan, it was better to be cautious. There's only one person outside. An ordinary person. No obvious malice. Ren Xiu looked toward the door and said. I nodded. Her ability was truly incredibly convenient. At this time, Sun Kuan had already automatically gone to open the door. The person who walked in was a man in military uniform. I glanced at the rank on his shoulder. 2 bars and 1 star. A major. Of course, in the apocalypse, military ranks often lost much of their meaning. Even a colonel, if the soldiers under his command had all died in the early days, that title was just an empty name. In this world, a person's status was determined by 2 things, strength and power. You had to have followers to be respected. You are? I asked, feeling a bit suspicious. I had never met this person, nor did I know why he was here. The officer was of average build, with dark skin but even, white teeth. He smiled, showing his teeth. I'm from the Zhonghai Military Region Staff Department. There's a leader in the staff department who wants to meet Mr. Jiang. I was slightly surprised. Wants to meet me? For what? I always kept my guard up against the military region, especially with Chu Zhongshan there. I dared not be careless. On my own turf, it was fine, but going to someone else's territory was unpredictably dangerous. The major seemed to guess my thoughts and smiled. Mr. Jiang, rest assured, I'm not Chu Zhongshan's man. My leader has nothing to do with him either. If Mr. Jiang would do us the honor, the leader has prepared a pot of premium Longjing tea, just waiting for you to drop by. I couldn't help but pause. In the apocalypse, even Coca-Cola was a luxury, let alone good tea. Zhonghai was close to the Longjing tea production area. Before the apocalypse, regular types cost anywhere from a few dozen to a few hundred yuan a caddy. Premium Longjing cost thousands, even tens of thousands of yuan. After the apocalypse, this stuff was definitely even rarer. Even high-ranking officials in District 1 of Zhonghai wouldn't bear to use it all up when drinking good tea. This made me incredibly curious. What exactly did this leader want with me? I glanced at Rinqiu. She nodded slightly, proving the officer wasn't lying. Thus, I could tentatively believe that the person wanting to meet me harbored no ill intent. At the very least, it wasn't a trap set by Chu Zhongshan. Although I had determined this wasn't a trap, to ensure safety, I still brought Ying, my sister, and Rinqiu along. Not only that, I also requested to travel in my own vehicle. The military officer naturally nodded, because the rule banning vehicles on the roads in District 1 of Zhonghai only applied to civilians. Military vehicles were not restricted. When I arrived at the leader's villa area on the safe island, it was already afternoon tea time. The houses in the villa area were all clean and spacious. As soon as I walked in, I saw a wooden table with a gongfu tea set laid out. A white-haired old man was using tongs to pick teacups out of a washing basin. This must be Mr. Jiang. I've heard a lot about you. Seeing me enter, the old man stood up and proactively offered his hand. The officer accompanying me immediately introduced him. This was their commander. My surname is Zhang. You can just call me Old Zhang, the old man said in a very amiable tone. This was clearly a high-ranking leader, regardless of whether it was before or after the apocalypse. This surprised me a bit. I reached out to shake his hand. Old Zhang's hand was large and firm, completely unlike an old man's hand. His palm was covered in thick, rough calluses, clearly from frequently handling guns. A high-ranking military leader who was still so familiar with guns was truly a rare sight. Hello, Commander. I'm Jiang Lushi. As for hearing a lot about me, I'm afraid you're being too modest. I'm just an ordinary civilian. You probably only heard my name today. Haha. Old Zhang laughed heartily. Exactly this morning. Old Zhang, what did you want to see me for? I cut straight to the chase. Well, I know about the situation between you and Chu Zhongshan. I also know he sent people to your place today, but it seems they suffered a loss. That's right, I answered frankly, glancing at old Zhang. I couldn't help but think that perhaps he was Chu Zhongshan's rival and wanted to rope me in. After all, the enemy of an enemy could become a friend. Old Zhang seemed to see through my thoughts and smiled, saying he indeed disliked Chu Zhongshan. Not only because of differing military views, but even before the apocalypse, the two of them didn't get along. He also didn't like Chu Zhongshan's son. Chu Zhongshan wanted to put his son into the military corps, but he disagreed, because how could someone be an officer without ever going to the front lines? As a result, Chu Zhongshan pushed his son to the front lines, and he died. He spoke very bluntly, without any reservations. But then, old Zhang slowly continued, calling me Little Jiang. He admitted that Chu Zhongshan's power was not small. Even though the two had conflicts, he didn't intend to overthrow the other party. Currently, District 1 of Zhonghai and the Safe Island were facing a massive crisis. If they still engaged in infighting, the attrition would only bring doomsday closer. He met me today for a different matter. It's related to the nuclear power plant. Hearing that, my heart jolted. Nuclear power plant. Old Zhang nodded, saying the Qinshan nuclear power plant was located just a few dozen kilometers south of Zhonghai City. Although the distance wasn't close, once a nuclear leak occurred, this place would still be threatened. In the apocalypse, With mutant beasts running rampant, the danger of a nuclear leak wasn't just radiation, but it could also create even more terrifying mutations. Since the apocalypse broke out, all the staff at the Qinshan nuclear power plant had died, but the reactor was still running. Due to the power outage, the cooling system couldn't circulate. The temperature in the reactor kept rising, ultimately leading to the risk of a meltdown. He didn't know the technical terms well, but the technician said that even if it didn't create a mushroom cloud like a nuclear bomb, the scale of the disaster could be even more horrific than Chernobyl and Fukushima. Accompanied by a widespread nuclear leak, the consequences would be unimaginable. The reality was that the plant had already experienced a partial leak. Therefore, a few days ago, the military issued a special mission, shut down the nuclear power plant. Hearing this, my jaw almost dropped. China didn't just have one nuclear power plant, and there were countless others worldwide. If all of them lost control and melted down, the consequences were truly unimaginable. Old Zhang sighed, saying no one knew how terrifying the mutant beasts caused by nuclear radiation would be. The current situation was extremely critical. For this mission, District 1 of Zhonghai had dispatched a fully reinforced battalion. Accompanied by 2 Type 99 tanks, for Type 92 infantry fighting vehicles, and 2 armed helicopters, they headed to the Phase 3 area of the nuclear power plant to shut down the reactor. Logically speaking, this wasn't a very difficult mission. Such a strong force was only to ensure absolute success. But then, an unexpected situation occurred. An unexpected accident. I raised an eyebrow. With both armed helicopters and Type 99 tanks, an accident still happened? This was truly unexpected. I probed. Because of the zombie horde? Thinking it over, it seemed only a zombie horde could cause such a massive impact. But if it was just zombies, even if Type 99 tanks struggled to maneuver in a crowd, armed helicopters could still operate. As long as they got the technicians there, shutting down the nuclear power plant shouldn't be too hard. The zombie horde is only part of it, the old general sighed. He said that when they arrived at the Qinshan nuclear power plant, besides the soldiers, there were technicians in charge of shutting down the reactor and a group of scientists. Among them were top biology professors from District 1 of Zhonghai. They went to study the mutant beasts caused by nuclear radiation. Initially, with tanks and helicopters escorting them, he believed security was sufficient, so he allowed the research to proceed. But no one expected an incident to occur. By all accounts, they should have returned 2 days ago, but last night, only 2 severely injured soldiers made it back. They escaped the zombie horde, but the real problem lay within the nuclear power plant itself. Those 2 soldiers described that around the plant area, a type of monster with mind control abilities had appeared. At that time, the gunner controlling the main gun of a Type 99 tank was controlled by it. As a result, the cannon didn't fire at the zombies, but blasted straight into an armored vehicle, killing many soldiers. I was shocked hearing this. If it was a mind control ability, it was indeed very hard to guard against. No matter how many heavy weapons you had, they were useless if attacked unexpectedly. Only by knowing in advance and taking precautions would there be a chance. I shook my head, saying bluntly, "Old Zhang, haven't you overestimated me? I only have a minor ability, mainly vehicle modification. Even Type 99 tanks, armed helicopters, and a battalion of soldiers failed. How could I possibly handle this mission? I'm willing to contribute to the country, but I don't want to commit suicide. What I need most is to survive. I'll wait until the mobile base is strong enough before I can do more." The old general understood the danger of this mission, but he turned to look at Ren Xiu and asked if she was Miss Ren. Ren Xiu was slightly surprised, then nodded. He said that according to what he knew, her ability was related to the mind. I immediately asked back, if Ren Xiu faces this unknown monster, what if she gets controlled by it? The old general explained that he had more information about the monster's mental strength. It wasn't too strong. It could probably only control one person at a time, but it was very smart. Back then, it controlled the tank gunner without anyone noticing, leading to a devastating cannon shot. It took about 10 minutes before it controlled another person. It seemed it also needed time to recover its mental energy. I glanced at Ren Xiu. She nodded slightly, proving these words were true. I silently evaluated. If that was the case, this monster's mind control ability wasn't too terrifying yet. The apocalypse had just begun. It might be an early-stage mutation caused by radiation. But if time passed, no one knew what it would evolve into. The old general said sternly that if the situation dragged on, District 1 of Zhonghai could face the threat of annihilation. Moreover, those scientists were top talents. Many soldiers had sacrificed themselves to protect them. If they died, research on the virus, zombies, and abilities would stall. The consequences would be massive. I asked again, are the scientists still alive? He nodded, saying they were heavily guarded by soldiers. After the first attack, snipers took turns standing guard day and night, combined with infrared night vision equipment. The monster didn't dare approach, probably because its mind control range was very limited. But currently, everyone was trapped in the Qinshan nuclear power plant, unable to return due to being surrounded by the zombie horde. Speaking of this, the old general took a wooden box from under the tea table, placed it in front of me, and opened it. Inside were 5 sparkling blue crystals. I was slightly taken aback. These weren't mutant cores, but I didn't know what they were either. The old general said these were evolutionary crystals, extracted from mutant cores and mutant beast meat. They contained compressed energy and could help Rin Xiu accelerate the evolution of her mental ability. I was truly shocked. Evolutionary crystals were something I had heard of. Mutant beast meat had too little energy, and eating too much easily caused indigestion. Mutant cores couldn't be used directly. Evolutionary crystals were the key to helping ability users evolve. Clearly, the military had successfully researched them, and this first batch was definitely incredibly precious. Now, they were willing to bring them out to enhance Rin Xiu's ability, aiming to improve her chances against that monster. For the safety of the scientists and to shut down the nuclear power plant, the military was going all out. The old general also turned to Rin Xiu, saying he had met her grandfather and was very sorry the military hadn't been able to protect him. He knew she still had a younger sister who was studying at a university in Yuhang before the apocalypse. The military would try their best to help her find her sister, but couldn't guarantee results. Hearing this, Rin Xiu's body trembled slightly, emotion flashing in her eyes. Her sister was the only relative she thought might still be alive. Yuhang was a large city. She had almost given up hope before. If the military could help find her, it would be an immense joy. She bit her lip and looked at me. As the captain, all final decisions were made by me. I sighed. This time, the military wasn't targeting me, but Rin Xiu. Mental abilities were too mysterious. The military must have researched them, but hadn't made a breakthrough. Rin Xiu showing her ability during the casino incident and when killing the mutant zombie had caught their attention. If she wanted to, she could even temporarily leave the Shuying squad to follow the military on missions. But since she still asked for my opinion, at this point, I had no reason to refuse. Even so, whether she could resist the monster or not, neither I nor she was sure. Because she herself was still in the process of exploring her ability. The military was just grasping at straws, and I had my own demands too. I can go, but on one condition, I stated clearly. I need 1,000 sniper rounds, including armor-piercing and armor-piercing incendiary rounds. Also, I need 20 mutant cores. Level 1 or level 2 is fine. The old general froze, the corner of his mouth twitching slightly. This condition was truly a lion opening its mouth. 20 mutant cores. The white-haired old general clearly showed a pained expression. He sighed, saying that currently, the military region even had to cut military pay, all to gather more mutant beast meat and mutant cores for scientific research. Even his monthly allowance was very limited. Don't let the fact that he was drinking Longjing tea in a villa fool me into thinking he was well off. In reality, the resources in his hands were far less than those of ability user squads like ours. Hearing the old general complain about his hardships, I looked at him, feeling in my heart that my demand was indeed a bit excessive. Previously, Shen Tao had given me 3 mutant cores, which together were barely enough. I compromised a bit. 15 cores. No less. Even though I knew it wasn't easy for the old general either, mutant cores were a must. Only by comprehensively upgrading the minibus to level 1 armor would my self-defense capabilities skyrocket, enough to ensure safety when entering the danger-filled nuclear power plant. While I was still negotiating with the old general about this mission, in a cafe on the safe island, Li Yusin sat blankly in her chair, looking dazed. Opposite her were Wang Shishir, Song Feng, a tall young soldier, and a dark-skinned man dressed sloppily. The young soldier had a neat haircut, wore a green military uniform, and had a pistol holstered at his waist. In contrast, the dark-skinned man looked like a rogue, leaning back in his chair with only the two back legs touching the ground. His front legs were off the floor, and he even rested his feet on another chair, an extremely impolite posture. He was in his 30s, holding a knife in his arms. His eyes were small, but his gaze was incredibly sharp. "Don't worry, Yusin. Auntie will be fine." Seeing her like this, Wang Shishir couldn't help but speak up to comfort her. Li Yusin's mother and grandfather were both top experts in the fields of biology and medicine. Her father was a businessman operating in this industry, thanks to his wife's technology. Li Yusin's family was brought to the Zhonghai Safe Island not because of her father, but because of her mother and grandfather, two highly valuable scientists. If comparing assets, her father's career was far inferior to the Rin Science Group, like a small business before a massive commercial empire. A week ago, Li Yusin's mother and grandfather had followed the military to the Qinshan nuclear power plant to investigate biological mutations. Initially, with Type 99 tanks leading the way and armed helicopters providing cover, they rode in infantry fighting vehicles, so everyone believed it would be safe. But this morning, Li Yusin received bad news. Her mother and grandfather had been trapped at the Qinshan nuclear power plant for 5 or 6 days. The food the military brought wasn't much to begin with, and it was probably almost gone by now. The area around the plant was full of dangers, with mutant beasts lurking and zombies attacking in waves, constantly depleting ammo and food. If this continued, the military would hardly be able to hold out for a few more days. Young people might be able to endure, but her grandfather was old and had a heart condition. How could he withstand such a dangerous situation? Thinking of this, Li Yusin's heart trembled repeatedly. Her mother and grandfather were her dearest relatives and the pillars of her family. If something happened to them, she truly didn't know if she could bear the shock. "Yusin, rest assured. With my brother and brother Lang here, this rescue mission will definitely go without a hitch." Wang Shishir patted her chest in guarantee, then turned to her neat, short-haired brother beside her. "You have to pay attention, okay? Yusin is my best friend." Her brother's name was Wang Jianlang. Not only was he a military officer, but he was also a very strong ability user. Wang Shishir's stable life on the safe island was largely thanks to her brother, so she was always extremely proud. Of course, Song Feng immediately chimed in, unable to hide his boasting. He said that this time, the political commissar of the military region, Commissioner Chu, had personally called Wang Jianlong's name, entrusting him with a heavy responsibility. The mission would definitely be a resounding success. Shutting down the nuclear power plant and rescuing the scientists had become the top priority, to the point that the Zhonghai Military Commission, the highest authority, had to step in directly. Whoever established merits in this mission would leave a massive mark on their career. Song Feng's flattery made Wang Shishir thoroughly enjoy it. Even though she knew her brother hadn't reached the level of the leaders in the military commission, now that Commissioner Chu himself had personally invited him to join the mission, it was enough to make her proud. Moreover, with her brother's strength, rescuing Yusin's mother and grandfather didn't seem to be a problem. If he completed the mission and achieved great merit, her brother might even be assigned a villa on the safe island. Thinking of living in a villa, inviting friends over for a party, and opening a rare bottle of wine, Wang Shishir couldn't help but get excited. Among her sisters, no one had ever lived in a villa, and she would be the first. Suppressing her emotions, Wang Shishir added that it wasn't just her brother, but also Brother Lang, an extremely strong person. In hand-to-hand combat, even her brother wasn't Brother Lang's match. The two were good brothers and coordinated perfectly. One fought from afar, the other fought up close, complementing each other flawlessly. So Yusin didn't need to worry about anything. But Li Yusin still hesitated, saying she heard rumors that there was a monster with mind control abilities at the nuclear power plant. Wang Shishir affirmed that the military said that ability was very limited. Furthermore, her brother's nickname was Hawkeye, and he was even stronger than the name suggested. His vision far surpassed an eagle's, able to perceive both infrared and ultraviolet light. He wasn't affected by the night. With his terrifyingly accurate marksmanship, as long as that monster was near the nuclear power plant. Her brother could spot it from thousands of meters away and take it down with a single shot. Speaking of this, Wang Shishir was brimming with confidence, as if the villa on the safe island had already appeared right before her eyes. The evolutionary ability Wang Jianlang awakened revolved almost entirely around sniping. His superhuman vision wasn't affected by day or night, combined with his terrifyingly precise shooting skills. As long as he had a large-caliber sniper rifle in his hands, even if the enemy hid behind obstacles, it would be very hard to escape his fatal shot. As for the man called Brother Lang, his specialty was close combat, perfectly making up for Wang Jianlong's weakness in close-quarters fighting. But even so, a very clear sense of unease still rose in Li Yusin's heart. She always felt things wouldn't go as smoothly as planned. Could that mind-controlling monster really be taken down with just one sniper shot? Captain Wang, I. Li Yusin looked at Wang Jianlang, wanting to speak, but stopping. Finally, she gritted her teeth and asked, "Can I follow the squad?" As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. Wang Shishir looked at her in surprise. "Yusin, you don't have any combat power. Why would you go? Besides, the conditions on the road are very harsh. Can you handle it?" Li Yusin bit her lip, saying no more. She knew her request sounded absurd. But what she didn't expect was Wang Jianlang asking, "Li Yusin, you're Shishir's classmate, also studying medicine, right?" Li Yusin paused for a moment, then nodded. Her parents both studied biology and medicine, and she also chose a major closely related to medicine. "That's right," Wang Jianlang said slowly. "This time, the military is deploying a reinforced battalion, accompanied by 4 ambulances. They need some medical staff and nurses to go along. The ambulances aren't just to treat the wounded, but also because many of the scientists are old and in poor health. Being trapped in the nuclear power plant for too long makes it easy for them to fall ill, so the military prepared ambulances with full equipment to prevent worst-case scenarios. Compared to the cramped and hot infantry fighting vehicles, the ambulances used to transport the scientists are naturally much safer and more comfortable." Hope instantly surged in Li Yusin's heart. She quickly said she had interned at a hospital. Although her skills couldn't compare to an experienced doctor, she knew how to operate the equipment and wouldn't hold everyone back. This information made her overjoyed. If her grandfather was fine, what could be better than caring for him herself? With her medical skills, she believed it was enough, because the work on the ambulance didn't require high-level skills like surgery. As long as you pass the doctor's interview, it's fine," Wang Jianlang nodded, then turned to ask Wang Shishir, "What about you?" Wang Shishir hesitated slightly. Although she also studied medicine, her grades weren't as good as Li Yusin's. Plus, going so far for a mission made her somewhat afraid. But thinking about having her brother protect her, and him being so strong, there probably wouldn't be any danger. Besides, she couldn't rely on her brother her whole life. Sooner or later, she had to find her own path. Thinking of this, Wang Shishir nodded. "You have to protect me." "Don't worry, no problem," Wang Jianlang replied concisely, then took out a pen and paper to write down the interview address for Li Yusin. Li Yusin carefully folded the piece of paper and put it in her pocket. In her heart, she silently prayed, "Grandpa, please, everyone must be safe." Commissioner Zhang of the Military Commission was indeed a straightforward person. He promised me 15 mutant cores and 1,000 sniper rounds, and sure enough, he had someone deliver them in full. Immediately after was the process of modifying the mobile base. 18 mutant cores were instantly swallowed by the starseed. The tires and bulletproof glass were comprehensively upgraded. The entire armor of the mobile base was replaced with level 1 alloy. This modification truly cost me quite a bit. Not only were the mutant cores all rare items, but the metal materials in storage were also nearly depleted. In the near future, I would have to go out and gather metal again. The modification lasted all night. By the next morning, looking at the completely transformed mobile base, my mood became very good. The vehicle's appearance hadn't changed, but the metal layer on its body seemed to carry a new vitality. The upgraded tires, even if hit by a machine gun, as long as it wasn't continuous fire, the vehicle wouldn't lose control. With these guarantees, I felt much more confident about this trip to the nuclear power plant. "Is Shiyu awake yet?" I asked Zhu Ying. Last night, following Commissioner Zhang's instructions, All 5 evolutionary crystals were given to Rin Xiu. As a result, her high fever was even worse than last time. Zhu Ying and Ying had been busy all night. They even had to strip off all her clothes, let her soak in a tub of warm water, and continuously wipe her sweat until 2 a.m. before her body temperature dropped. She's awake, combing her hair. Get ready to head out. I had already prepared food and checked the weapons and ammo, then opened the door of the mobile base and jumped on. At this moment, I saw Rin Xiu had just finished washing her face. I didn't know if it was from soaking all night or the effect of the evolutionary crystals, but today her skin was as translucent as jade, smooth and radiant, looking like a perfect work of art. Noticing my gaze, she lowered her head slightly, her cheeks flushing pink. Thank you. Those 2 words contained so much meaning. From a girl who was once locked in a cage, starving and waiting to be sold to perverts, to standing here today, her ability evolving twice, becoming a top-tier existence in the Zhonghai base. It was all thanks to me. Even this trip to the nuclear power plant was related to finding her sister. Get in the car, I said briefly. Rin Xiu and Zhu Ying stepped onto the vehicle. Sun Kuan and Zhang Hai had also requested a heavy truck from the military. From now on, it would serve as their personal vehicle. When I drove to the gate of the Zhonghai base, the mission convoy was already there. Over 10 dark green military vehicles, fully armed soldiers, infantry fighting vehicles, Type 99 tanks, ambulances, nothing was missing. Compared to the previous trip to Tongnan, this scale was completely different. Just one trip like this consumed a massive amount of diesel. And in an era where the petrochemical industry hadn't been restored, diesel was a precious strategic resource. Perhaps in the near future, the supply of diesel would become increasingly restricted. Even the military, lacking the backing of modern industry, would find it very hard to unleash its full power. Not to mention the remaining forces of District 1 of Zhonghai weren't that robust to begin with. Facing the zombie horde, the situation truly wasn't very optimistic. Just as I was deep in thought, a clear voice suddenly rang out. Jiang Lushi, is it really you? I didn't expect that among the military ranks preparing to depart, I would run into Li Yusin. You're joining this operation too? I was quite surprised to see Li Yusin wearing a camouflage cap and a white lab coat, clearly the attire of a military medic. Recalling that her college major was medicine, becoming a military medic was indeed very fitting. Perhaps those ambulances in the convoy were where she worked. You're joining too? What a coincidence. Seeing me again in the ranks, Li Yusin seemed very happy. Beside her was Wang Shishi, also wearing a white lab coat, having changed out of her usual designer clothes. When she saw me, a very complicated feeling arose in Wang Shishi's heart. When she first met me at the cafe, she thought I was just a rustic refugee. It wasn't until the pool party last time that she realized I had some skills, probably a decent ability user. Wang Shishi didn't have an ability, and her major was only average, but her affluent life both before and after the apocalypse always gave her a hidden sense of superiority. Before, that feeling was enough for her to maintain an attitude in front of a refugee like me. But now, knowing I was also an ability user, that superiority didn't seem so solid anymore. In the current society, strength was status. Before the apocalypse, you could be a nobody, but after the apocalypse, as long as you had strength, others would call you boss. This made Wang Shishi feel very unfair. Yusin, do you know who Lin Yaoshan is? And where the sniper squad is? Before setting out, Commissioner Zhang had told me to find Lin Yaoshan and the sniper squad. Besides Rin Xiu, who played a key role with her mental ability, my squad's combat power wasn't weak either. Especially my sniping ability, which Commissioner Zhang highly valued. As an ability user squad, I was assigned to operate as an independent action team, but in many situations, coordination would yield higher efficiency. Therefore, the task of coordinating with the sniper squad had been arranged in advance. I don't know Lin Yaoshan, but as for the sniper squad, Li Yusin looked at Wang Shishi. Her brother, Wang Jianlang, was the captain of the sniper squad. Hearing the sniper squad mentioned, Wang Shishi immediately looked proud. My brother is the captain of the sniper squad. What do you need him for? Just some matters to coordinate. I answered quite casually. Coordinate. Wang Shishi looked at me suspiciously. Could it be that your squad also has a sniper? In her eyes, a sniper was an almost legendary figure, usually only existing in novels and movies. It was very hard for her to associate a civilian with the word sniper. I am, but not exactly a sniper, just a bit better at shooting. I knew myself that a true sniper needed a lot of specialized knowledge, stealth skills, and patience built over days. I hadn't reached that level yet. Wang Shishir's eyes widened, her heart filled with both shock and skepticism. Having been slapped in the face once before, she didn't dare say much this time, only smiling. So you know how to shoot too. What a coincidence. My brother is the best sniper in all of District 1 of Zhonghai, and he's also the main person in charge of the sniping mission this time. We're all classmates. I'll tell him to look out for you. Sure, I nodded. This mission had too many unknowns. I didn't plan on acting alone either. My brother is over there. Wang Shishir waved and called out. Wang Jianlang was discussing plans with the commander when he heard the call. He frowned slightly, pretending not to hear, but the commander in front of him said, "Is that your sister? Let's head over." Wang Jianlang froze. The commander had already walked over. It was a middle-aged man around 40, thin but full of spirit, in a neat military uniform. Looking at his epaulettes, he was clearly a colonel. Wang Shishir immediately fell silent. She didn't expect her brother to be talking to a figure of such rank. The man smiled and introduced himself. "I'm surnamed Lin Yaoshan, the commander of this mission." Then he looked at me. "Are you Captain Jiang?" "Yes, Commissioner Zhang told me to find you." Lin Yaoshan laughed, saying he wasn't some general, just temporarily commanding a battalion in the apocalypse. Then he introduced Wang Jianlang as the captain of the sniper squad, nicknamed Hawkeye, with extremely outstanding shooting skills. After that, he turned to Wang Jianlang, saying that in this mission, when necessary, the sniper squad must coordinate with and take orders from me. Wang Jianlang was stunned. He was a professional sniper, while did I even know anything about sniping? But Lin Yaoshan explained that this was only necessary in crucial situations. Normally, he would still command the sniper squad. Despite his doubts, Lin Yaoshan still followed Commissioner Zhang's decision. As for how effective it would be, they could only wait for actual combat to verify. His expression didn't change, but Wang Shishir was different. Her face went almost pale. Her brother had to take orders from me? She finally understood. Lin Yaoshan walking over wasn't because she called her brother, but because he had seen me from the start. After the introductions, Lin Yaoshan began discussing the sniping mission with me and Wang Jianlang, the specific requirements as well as the coordination plan with the main force. The subsequent discussions completely went over Wang Shishir's head. She only felt like a joke standing there redundantly, her face burning hot. A thought kept repeating in her mind. Why? Why does my brother have to take orders from someone else? To her, Wang Jianlang was always her greatest pride. All right, that's the general situation. You two can discuss further. I still have matters to handle. Lin Yaoshan left after speaking. Wang Jianlang stood opposite me, his expression not very pleasant. As a soldier, he was used to obeying organizational orders, but this order made him extremely uncomfortable. "Captain Jiang, I wonder what kind of scope you usually use for your sniper rifle? 3 by 20 millimeters or 3-9x 40 mm? That was a very basic question. To a sniper, the scope was almost their life. Although there were legendary snipers like Zhang Taofeng who killed hundreds of enemies using only iron sights, that was back in the 1950s, and the distance wasn't far. In modern warfare, a sniper without a precision scope was like a bird with broken wings. Wang Jianlang asking this wasn't because he actually cared what scope I used. He just wanted to open the conversation to test if I understood professional knowledge and whether I was worthy of coordinating with him. Frankly speaking, he still didn't believe someone without a military background like me could handle this role. As long as I answered, he would continue asking about range estimation, shooting moving targets, adjusting the point of aim for different scopes, and the differences between various guns, bullets, powder loads, or cartridge neck lengths. Things that even longtime military enthusiasts might not fully understand. But my answer completely caught him off guard. What is 3 by 20 millimeters or 3-9x 40 mm? Wang Jianlang was instantly speechless. The questions he had prepared got stuck in his throat. He stared at me, seemingly wondering if I was messing with him. But seeing my expression, he realized I genuinely didn't know. He tried to keep his cool and explained that 20 millimeters or 40 millimeters was the objective lens diameter, while the number in front was the magnification. Then he asked, if I didn't know those things, how did I measure distance? And without knowing the distance, how could I hit the target? I just estimated by eye and feel. I shrugged. I knew sniper training required a ton of formulas, but the reality of the battlefield was different. After hiding all day, sometimes you only have a few seconds to pull the trigger, and the target appears in completely unpredictable locations. If you miss that window, the mission is a failure. In those few fleeting seconds, no one has time to calculate formulas. Everything relies on brain reflexes and muscle memory. Both Simo Haihe and Zhang Taofeng used old rifles with simple iron sights to take down hundreds of enemies. Zhang Taofeng only trained for a few months, and back then, the army didn't even have official snipers. The instructors were just veterans, who knew about all those complex formulas. When the brain and body reach perfect coordination through countless shots, the shooter naturally feels where the bullet will land. It's pure instinct. And my brain capacity has evolved. My reflexes and shooting intuition are far beyond ordinary people. In this specific field, you could even call me a genius. Estimating by eye. Wang Jinlong's face darkened. Lin Miaoshan actually wanted him to take orders from a guy like this? What a joke. This mission concerns the very survival of the Zhonghai safe zone, yet it was handed out so carelessly. He didn't want to say another word and turned to leave. Wang Shishi hurriedly chased after her brother. I rubbed my chin, guessing that Wang Jianlang was probably going to find Lin Miaoshan to protest the order. But old Zhang really played his cards well. Even though he and Chu Zhongshan were both committee members, his power was clearly greater. Lin Miaoshan was his man, and the task assignments were decided by Lin Miaoshan. So Wang Jianlang had no choice but to obey. Since when did you know how to use a sniper rifle? Li Yusin asked blankly. Lin Miaoshan clearly ordered Wang Jianlang to coordinate with me, but I didn't look like someone who understood sniping at all. Just naturally, I replied casually. Then I casually added that those two siblings had pretty interesting names. One is a sword, the other is poetry. Sounds as elegant as jade. Li Yusin was momentarily speechless. Everyone was stressed about the mission, yet I still had the mood to joke around. She was extremely worried about this operation, even though she was just a lowly combat medic. Meanwhile, according to Lin Miaoshan, I was a key figure, yet I was so laid back. It made her understand me less and less. Ever since the apocalypse, I was completely different from the college student I used to be. Right at that moment, the convoy began to move out. It seemed Wang Jinlong's protest had failed, because I saw Wang Shishi storming back angrily. Before getting into the ambulance, she even glared at me and scoffed coldly. The distance was quite far, so she probably thought I didn't see it, but I saw it perfectly. Of course, I couldn't care less about a spoiled rich girl who had never tasted hardship. I hopped onto the minibus, closed the door, and we set off. The convoy quickly left the Zhonghai safe zone, kicking up clouds of dust. Lacking manpower and maintenance machinery, the roads had already begun to gather thick layers of dust due to the sparse traffic. Jiang Zhuiying was in charge of driving. I held the newly issued walkie-talkie, sitting in the control room. Ren Xiyu obediently used her mental abilities to keep watch over the surroundings, while Zhuiying lounged on the sofa watching cartoons. It looked like we were on a road trip. Right then, the walkie-talkie crackled. A zombie horde spotted ahead. I didn't reply immediately, but turned to ask Ren Xiyu. Oh right, Xiyu, your mental ability has evolved, hasn't it? What kind of ability did it evolve into? My words instantly caught Jiang Zhuiying's attention. She set her tablet aside, her big round eyes staring intently at Ren Xiyu. I'm super curious too. Let me guess. Can you use telekinesis to move objects? Or is it like in the legends, where you can use a flower petal or a leaf to attack? Zhuiying started imagining all sorts of things, but Xiyu just shook her head. So it's mind control? Can you manipulate zombies or mutated beasts? Xiyu shook her head again, then softly said that her evolved mental ability was very hard to describe. Just like she had mentioned before, she could see a mental world. I nodded. In the mental world Xiyu saw, everything became simple and transparent. Only creatures with mental energy appeared clearly, like burning flames. Human mental energy looked like fire. The stronger it was, the brighter it burned. Meanwhile, zombies were just faint gray specks. With this ability, Xiyu could scan the entire surrounding area 360 degrees with zero blind spots. Any creature approaching couldn't escape her detection. Now, at the center of my mental domain, a white halo has appeared. Like this, Shiyu said as she gently closed her eyes. Instantly, I felt an invisible breeze sweep past, but my clothes didn't rustle at all. It felt like an illusion. I focused my mind, feeling that breeze blow straight into my soul. It was a very hard feeling to describe. That is the white halo. According to my will, it can expand or shrink, like a domain that belongs to me. Inside it, my mental energy can move freely. I can also make this halo stronger. As she spoke, the halo in her mental vision grew increasingly radiant, eventually shining white like a miniature sun. My head started to feel heavy, and Zhuiying also took a slight step back. This is probably the mental pressure within my domain, Shiyu said apologetically. That's the maximum level. If there are too many people in this domain at once, I'll be overloaded. But if I only focus on one person, the effect will be much more obvious. My eyes immediately lit up. Zhuiying and I didn't have weak mental energy, yet we still felt uncomfortable when affected simultaneously. If she targeted just one person, how terrifying would that be? I asked if she could focus solely on one person. Shiyu nodded. Then I asked how far her maximum range could expand. Shiyu closed her eyes to test it. A moment later, she frowned slightly from fatigue, saying she could reach a maximum of 3 to 4 kilometers, but couldn't maintain it for long. Within a 1 to 2 kilometer range, she could keep it stable. That distance made me take a deep breath. I asked if, within that range, she could apply mental pressure to everyone. Shiyu said yes, but the further away they were, the weaker the pressure would be. On the flip side, if she only used it for mental communication, she could transmit information to everyone in the halo simultaneously. Moreover, as long as they were within this domain, any mental entity would appear clearly, as if right in front of her eyes. Hearing that, I was genuinely thrilled. Shiyu's ability was something any team would drool over. A 360-degree scan within a few kilometers, completely unhindered by terrain. Wide-area mental communication, plus the ability to suppress minds at close range. If I was the spearhead of the Shuriying squad, then Shiyu was the eyes, helping me lock onto targets and deliver the fatal blow. I want an evolution crystal too. Zhuiying pouted. She clearly understood Shiyu's importance, and even though she was incredibly strong in close combat, in terms of overall contribution to the team, she still fell short of her. I told her to relax. We'd get evolution crystals eventually. Knowing the military had already researched evolution crystals, I also heard from Ing that the base vehicle could unlock a laboratory to extract crystals from energy cores and mutated beasts. I was also curious. If we had enough crystals, how much would my sister's power increase? According to the Starseed Systems evaluation, Zhuiying was currently a level 1+ metahuman. Meanwhile, Shiyu seemed to have already touched level 2. Even though the military would sooner or later train level 2 metahumans, I still believed no one could surpass my Shuriying squad. Right then, Lin Miaoshan's voice crackled over the walkie-talkie. A large-scale zombie horde spotted ahead, mixed with mutated beasts. All combat units, deploy immediately and clear the way. From the Zhonghai safe zone to the Qinshan nuclear power plant, zombies swarmed everywhere. Only a modern army with heavy weaponry could push forward, and even then, they would still suffer casualties. Mutated zombies spotted. Sniper team, move up. Right after, an earth-shattering explosion rang out. The ground shook as the Type 99 tanks opened fire. I observed from the control room, but the scene unfolding before me made my heart sink. The tank's shot didn't achieve the expected results. A high-explosive shell could level an area the size of 2 basketball courts, but only if the targets were densely packed. The zombie horde had spread out. That shot only took down about 20 of them. Compared to the endless sea of zombies surging forward, it was just a drop in the bucket. As zombies swarmed in from all sides, the pressure was truly suffocating. Besides tank cannons and autocannons on armored vehicles, the military only had grenades and rocket launchers left to deal with them. In the vast area surrounding the Zhonghai safe zone, there were at least millions of zombies gathered, a number enough to make anyone shudder. Inside the ambulance, Li Yusin was so tense she could barely breathe. Through the window, she saw the zombie horde surging forward, stretching endlessly out of sight. That terrifying pressure weighed heavily on her chest, suffocating her. If this horde closed in on the convoy, a bloody battle was inevitable. Moreover, anyone bitten would be infected with the second-stage evolution virus and turn into a zombie. Thinking of the zombies swarming the convoy, Li Yusin's face visibly paled. Compared to her, Wang Shishir was faring even worse. Her lips trembling, she clung tightly to Li Yusin's arm, her voice laced with sobs. Yusin, I'm so scared. These zombies, they can't possibly break into the car, right? At this moment, Wang Shishir was already regretting joining this mission. This wasn't a movie, nor was it some dry news report. It was real slaughter. It was the naked brutality of the apocalypse. So this was the real apocalypse. Her palms were drenched in cold sweat. Since the beginning of the apocalypse, her family had lived very close to the safe zone. She had been protected too well, never truly tasting its harshness. Until today, she finally witnessed the war of the apocalypse with her own eyes. A war between flesh and blood and cold steel. Those soldiers, those metahuman squads, did they really have to face scenes like this every single day? Beneath her white lab coat, Wang Shishir's body trembled uncontrollably, even though she knew it was embarrassing. Right then, crash. A deafening shatter rang out right next to her, making Wang Shishir scream in panic. Shishir, Li Yusin managed to catch her just as she nearly collapsed. Only then did she realize that one of the ambulance's windows had completely shattered. The ambulances following the military convoy were only equipped with standard tempered glass. The Zhonghai safe zone didn't have the resources to install bulletproof glass, so they only reinforced the windows with welded steel bars to keep zombies out. But right now, the steel bars were intact, and the zombies were still hundreds of meters away. Yet the glass was shattered. What happened? Li Yusin spotted a small steel rod lodged near the roof of the car. It was about 10 centimeters long and wasn't embedded deep, but if it hit someone, it would definitely be fatal. Did this thing shatter the glass? Where did it even come from? Without time to overthink, Li Yusin immediately dropped to the floor, shouting for everyone to get down to avoid getting hurt. The vehicle was full of young nurses who were already scared out of their wits. Hearing that, they huddled into the corners like panicked rabbits. Yusin, I'm bleeding. Wang Shishir was on the verge of tears, her voice trembling. Li Yusin saw a large tear in her clothes, her arm oozing blood. She immediately reassured her, quickly grabbing bandages to dress the wound. Fortunately, the window was tempered glass, so no sharp shards flew into anyone. Otherwise, the consequences would have been much worse. Right then, a commanding voice echoed from the ambulance's walkie-talkie. All units, fire at will. Leaving the vehicles is strictly prohibited. Non-combatants, stay down. Sniper team, move up immediately and eliminate the mutated zombies. At this point, mutated zombies were still a vague concept to the military. They only knew these creatures possessed intelligence, could control ordinary zombies, and were extremely difficult to deal with. Zombies capable of throwing objects for ranged attacks like just now were mostly under the control of mutated zombies. An organized attack like this proved there was definitely more than one pulling the strings. Inside the command vehicle, Lin Miaoshan was anxious to the extreme. The zombie horde's evolution speed was way too fast. Initially, they had even considered a counterattack on Tongnan City. But now, just defending the Zhonghai safe zone was a matter of life and death. If the zombies truly went berserk and breached the safe zone, the consequences would be unimaginable. Ammunition was limited. Even with heavy artillery, anti-aircraft machine guns, and Type 99 tanks, they couldn't hold out forever against an endless sea of zombies. Tank armor-piercing shells were meant for other tanks. Firing them at zombies was highly ineffective. As for specialized grenades, the entire Zhonghai zone had very few left. Every one used was one less they had. Right then, a crisp report came through the walkie-talkie. Hawkeye reporting. Sniper team is in position. Lin Miaoshan breathed a sigh of relief, but then frowned, because he still hadn't heard my response. Earlier, Hawkeye had complained that I didn't even understand sniper scopes, but due to committee member Zhang's orders, he had brushed it off. Just as he was getting impatient, my voice finally came through the walkie-talkie, deep and concise. In position. No call sign, no standard protocol. If they weren't familiar with my voice, no one would even know it was me. Lin Miaoshan cursed under his breath in frustration, feeling even more uneasy. Because of the mutated zombies, he didn't dare hesitate. Braving the danger, he pushed open the armored vehicle's hatch, wearing a bulletproof vest and helmet, and grabbed his binoculars to observe the battlefield directly. From there, he saw my minibus had circled to the front of the convoy. The UFO-shaped control room slowly rose, exuding a high-tech vibe. He scoffed softly, knowing my metahuman ability was mechanical modification. At the same time, Hawkeye's sniper team officially joined the fray. Wang Jianlang held his sniper rifle. His eagle-like vision allowed him to clearly see targets several kilometers away without needing a scope. He was as calm as a seasoned hunter. Every shot rang out decisively. The zombies throwing steel rods were instantly blown apart amidst the horde, noticeably reducing the pressure on the convoy. Lin Miaoshan spared no praise, repeatedly urging Hawkeye to stay sharp and absolutely find and eliminate the mutated zombies. That exchange echoed across all the vehicle's radios. In the ambulance, Wang Shishir heard her brother's voice and was instantly so thrilled she almost cried. She believed that as long as her brother was here, everything would be fine. Li Yusin was more cautious. She peeked outside from a blind spot and saw that my minibus had also taken action. But Wang Shishir paid no attention at all. Right now, her mind was solely on her brother. As for me, sitting in the control room, I watched the entire battlefield unfold before my eyes. It was crystal clear. The real battle had only just begun. Another blood blossom exploded amidst the zombie horde. Lin Miaoshan couldn't help but nod in praise, saying Wang Jianlang truly lived up to the name Hawkeye. His sniping skills were indeed formidable. Then he turned his gaze toward my minibus. From the beginning until now, I hadn't fired a single shot. Captain Jiang, eliminate the mutated zombies immediately. Lin Miaoshan urged over the walkie-talkie. This time I replied very quickly. Just one word. So brief it gave Lin Miaoshan a headache. Hawkeye had incredible vision, but finding mutated zombies wasn't his strong suit. In the sea of zombies before him, he could only identify the ones throwing objects. He barely blinked, trying to spot any anomalies within the dense horde. But at a glance, they all looked exactly the same. Even infrared didn't show any difference. The number of zombies wasn't in the hundreds or thousands, but countless, making the search a terrifying mental burden. Would she use mental ability outshine Hawkeye's observational skills? I looked out from the control room. Down below, Rin Shiyu sat on the sofa, her gray eyes flashing with an unusual light. Her mental domain had expanded, the white halo continuously spreading outward. Within it, countless mental light specks appeared. Mutated zombies were only slightly brighter than ordinary ones. Finding them in a moving crowd was like finding a slightly larger sesame seed in a swirling basket of sesame seeds. For someone with weak mental energy, it was impossible. But in Shiyu's domain, every mental entity appeared as clearly as if they were right in front of her. Her eyes gleamed, scanning rapidly. The battle was fierce. She didn't just have to find them. She had to find them fast. I asked if she had spotted them yet. Searching. Found them. Shiyu pinpointed the mutated zombies, but scanning through thousands of targets made her mental pressure spike. I had just nodded when she suddenly frowned, saying that mutated zombie was closing in on Hawkeye's vehicle. Right after, she cried out again. Jiang, there's another one behind it. Even stronger than the first. Two of them overlapping. One on the right, one behind Hawkeye. I looked up. Those were both in my blind spots, but as long as his vehicle sped up, I could shoot them. Mutated zombies moved incredibly fast. There was no time to hesitate. I immediately barked an order over the walkie-talkie, demanding Hawkeye accelerate and leave his position. But right then, the mutated zombie leaped up from the horde, lunging straight at his vehicle. In front of a sniper, a jump like that was practically suicide. Hawkeye didn't panic. Instead, he grew even more focused, his gaze cold. I kept urging him to speed up, warning him there was another one, but he didn't listen. In his eyes, I was just a guy who knew nothing about sniping. He was seizing the perfect moment to pull the trigger. Accelerating now would ruin his shooting rhythm. He ignored the warning, calmly aiming at the incoming mutated zombie and pulling the trigger. At that exact moment, a flash of confidence crossed his mind. But almost simultaneously, his scalp suddenly went numb. From behind, a tiny zombie suddenly leaped up, wielding a long iron rod. This zombie was so agile it was even faster than the mutated zombie. When it appeared, all of Hawkeye's attention was focused on the target in front of him. He didn't even hear my command. The moment he pulled the trigger, that tiny zombie swung its iron rod. I fired immediately. In my blind spot, I couldn't shoot it, so I shot straight at the zombie in front. Blood splattered everywhere, obscuring the vision and deflecting the rod's trajectory. After throwing the rod, the tiny zombie darted back into the horde like lightning. An agonized scream rang out. The bloody iron rod grazed Hawkeye's arm. The rifle slipped from his grasp. A large chunk of flesh was torn from his arm, the impact and friction leaving the wound mangled. I frowned, widening my field of vision for a quick scan. The mutated zombie in front was just bait. Its jump was a feint. Hawkeye's shot had completely missed the target. By the time I swung my rifle around, it had dropped down and vanished into the sea of zombies. The agonizing screams continued endlessly. For a sniper, hands and eyes are everything. But now, one of his arms was severely ruined. I had warned him. I had given the order, but he didn't believe me. Earlier, I only knew there were 2 mutated zombies. I never expected them to coordinate an attack like that. Wang Jinlong's teammates pulled him into the vehicle, trying to stop the bleeding while calling for medics over the radio. In the ambulance, Wang Shishir, who had just been thrilled, froze upon hearing the news. She rushed toward the cab, screaming to ask if it was her brother. When it was confirmed he had lost a lot of blood and was hit by a zombie with an iron rod, her face turned deathly pale. Tears streamed down her face as she frantically begged Li Yusin for help. The ambulance immediately sped toward the sniper team's vehicle. Lin Miaoshan scowled, grabbing the walkie-talkie to order the surrounding vehicles, including mine, to provide cover fire so the medics could approach. But right then, his eyes widened. What was I doing? The minibus suddenly broke formation, accelerating to the max. Like a steel arrow, it plunged straight into the zombie horde ahead. The minibus tore forward at breakneck speed. After its armor was fully upgraded, its safety had increased significantly. Bam! Bam! The zombies in front were sent flying like bowling pins, while the ones lunging from the sides were instantly knocked away by the minibus's terrifying speed. Jiang Zhuing slammed on the gas, gripping the steering wheel tightly. She constantly swerved and accelerated, turning the minibus into a literal race car. The engine roared like thunder. A zombie that had just hoisted a large chunk of iron was instantly gunned down by my shot. Captain Jiang, do not break formation. Fall back immediately. Lin Miaoshan's urgent voice blared over the walkie-talkie. I had no time to answer right now. All my focus was poured into my brain's ability. I slowed down my vision, locking my attention to hunt down those 2 mutated zombies from earlier. They had retreated deep into the horde right after striking, waiting for another chance to attack. But I wasn't going to let them vanish again. Those 2 zombies were already locked on by Shiyu's mental ability. In her perception, they were like 2 glowing fireflies in the dead of night. Shiyu continuously relayed their positions to Zhuiying and me through mental communication. We were on the hunt. BZZZT. Electricity surged along the minibus's chassis. The zombies clinging to the vehicle were violently shocked and thrown off. The minibus continued to plow deep into the horde. In the ambulance, Li Yusin was comforting a sobbing Wang Shishir while glancing outside. She clearly saw our minibus charging alone into the sea of zombies. Zhang Hai's truck could only provide cover fire from behind, not daring to follow closely, otherwise they could easily get surrounded. Therefore, amidst the dense zombie horde right now, only the lone minibus was charging forward, with zombies constantly lunging at it. Wang Jinlang had been brought into the ambulance. Seeing her brother covered in blood, his face deathly pale and dripping with cold sweat, Wang Shishir instantly broke down. Li Yusin quickly cut open his sleeve, calling for hemostatic drugs and sutures. Snapped it by her, Wang Shishir frantically complied, her hands trembling. Every time the medicine touched his wound, Wang Jinlang convulsed violently, groans of pain escaping his throat. "Don't cry," he said through gritted teeth. Even in this much pain, he still asked where the 2 mutated zombies were, then asked what my squad was doing. When he heard we were in pursuit, he grew furious, calling it a suicidal move, but the pain stopped him from saying more. By now, my minibus had separated from the main force by several hundred meters. The vehicle tore forward, ripping through the zombie horde and carving out a straight path. Plunging hundreds of meters deep into a zombie horde meant being surrounded by death on all sides. But if I didn't have a vehicle upgraded to this extent, I wouldn't have dared to do it either. The soldiers watching from behind couldn't help but marvel. This vehicle was even more terrifying than their combat vehicles. Right then, Shiyu's voice echoed in my head. They're out. The minibus had pushed too deep. The two mutated zombies couldn't possibly ignore it. Only one is charging at us. Very fast. Behind you. The moment the warning sounded, I swung my rifle around without a second of hesitation. My brain ability fully activated, and the world before my eyes slowed down. Gotcha. The mutated zombie had just leaped out of the horde, clutching an iron rod in its hand. It was a female zombie, only about 16 or 17 years old. Her eyes lacked the madness of ordinary zombies. Aside from the bloodstains on her cheeks and her glowing red eyes, that face looked almost no different from a human teenage girl. She was even quite pretty. The minibus plowed like a maniac into the horde, constantly sending zombies flying to the sides. Zhu Ying's incredibly skillful steering and acceleration made the vehicle look exactly like a race car, tearing through the sea of zombies as it sped on. Just as I was about to pull the trigger, Rin Shiyu's voice rang in my head. Careful! Another light speck just appeared. At the same time, the starseed's cold voice echoed in my consciousness. Level 2 mutated zombie detected. A tiny hand suddenly rested on the female zombie's shoulder. I only had time to see a pair of massive eyes peeking out from behind her shoulder, staring straight at me. Those eyes made my scalp tingle. The pupils weren't glowing red like normal zombies, but gleamed with an eerie purple hue. With just one look, my entire body stiffened in an instant, as if I had heard the low roar of a fierce tiger echoing in my mind. Infrasound waves. Previously, at Jinling Pier, I had encountered a massive underwater monster that used this exact type of attack. That tiny zombie just glanced at me, then immediately pulled the female zombie deep back into the horde. The sniper rifle spat fire. 2 or 3 surrounding zombies exploded into chunks of gore. I had missed. When I pulled the trigger, I tried to adjust, but the mental interference from the tiny zombie threw my shot off target. Earlier, Wang Jianlang had missed the female zombie, most likely because he was disrupted by this thing too. As blood splattered everywhere, both zombies vanished from my line of sight. They're heading toward the army. Rin Shiyu screamed. The two mutated zombies had only faced me for a split second before circling around to continue their assault on the military formation. Unbelievable. Their behavior was completely different from what people usually thought of zombies. I immediately grabbed the walkie-talkie. Commander Lin, watch out for zombie sneak attacks. Then I turned and ordered, turn the car around. At the same time, I called out urgently in my mind. Shiyu, I'm locking onto them. That zombie from just now. Its light speck is very strange, Shiyu said, frowning. It keeps appearing and disappearing. It's very hard to track. 10 o'clock direction. I quickly scanned in that direction. A group of zombies was shoved aside, and in that gap, I caught a glimpse of a tiny figure. It was a little girl, not even 10 years old, wearing a pre-apocalypse dress, her hair tied in twin tails with ribbons. She looked incredibly adorable, but her speed was faster than a cheetah. She was the one who used the iron rod to critically injure Wang Jianlang. If I hadn't intervened in time, he would be dead. And right now, her target was the ambulance. The tiny zombie seemed to know Wang Jianlang wasn't dead yet, and noticing I was in pursuit, she immediately turned back, preparing to finish him off. Way too smart. I took a deep breath, aiming my rifle straight at the level 2 mutated zombie charging toward the ambulance. At this moment, Wang Jianlang had just been moved into the ambulance for emergency treatment. To make suturing easier, the vehicle had slowed down, moving at a crawl, escorted by 2 military vehicles. The ambulance was in the center of the formation, a place ordinary zombies couldn't reach. But now, a tiny figure was rushing toward it at terrifying speed. Behind her was my minibus, accelerating in pursuit, my gun barrel locked onto the target. Could I shoot her down before she reached the ambulance? I entered a state of extreme focus. The whole world seemed to fall silent. All my consciousness was poured into that tiny figure tearing through the wind. For a sniper, the window of opportunity only exists for a split second. I knew very well that with that terrifying speed, if she reached the ambulance, everyone inside would be in grave danger. The military vehicles, including the ambulance, were completely unaware of the approaching threat. Inside the ambulance, Wang Shishir was crying as she told her brother she would stitch his wound right away, telling him not to worry about the battle. Li Yusin prepared the medicine, a flicker of unease flashing in her eyes. In the cab, the driver and the machine gunner were both focused on observing their surroundings. On the surface, everything seemed normal. The moment my warning voice came through the walkie-talkie, both instantly heightened their guard. But at that exact moment, their eyes widened in unison. A tiny figure suddenly leaped up, crashing straight into their line of sight through the windshield. Though her figure was small, when their eyes met, that silhouette seemed to fill their entire world. Inside the ambulance, Wang Shishir looked up, just in time to see the tiny zombie. She was wielding a broken fire axe, lunging straight at the vehicle as if she wanted to cleave the ambulance in two. I don't know if she even managed to scream out loud. I only saw that fear had completely swallowed her. What the hell is this? The moment the mutated zombie leaped, my eyes instantly locked onto her. No time to think. In that brief split second, I pulled the trigger the moment I saw the target. The sniper rifle spat out a long tongue of fire. But right then, my vision suddenly blurred. The mutated zombie vanished. Smash! A massive spiderweb crack appeared on the ambulance's windshield. My bullet grazed right past the roof of the vehicle, completely missing the target. Once again, I was affected by that bizarre energy. I twitched my fingers, forcing myself to exhale slowly. A normal person hit by infrasound waves would stiffen up completely, losing all their strength. I was feeling something similar right now, just milder. But my eyes remained glued to the ambulance. That mutated zombie moved too fast. She could attack the vehicle at any moment, and my window to shoot her only existed for a split second. More importantly, I absolutely could not hit the ambulance. If even a single bullet pierced through, everyone inside would die. Smash! The ambulance's windshield was violently struck again, the entire chassis shuddering violently. Not just Wang Shishir, but everyone inside screamed in panic. They all simultaneously fell into an irresistible state of terror. Even without hearing any clear sounds, just looking out the window made everyone feel like the outside was swarming with frenzied zombies trying to tear them apart. My mental energy was strong enough that the impact on me was minimal, but the people in the ambulance were different. They were hit head-on, completely submerged in the tiny zombies' infrasound waves. The ambulance driver, witnessing this scene firsthand, was also heavily affected. He slammed on the gas, desperately trying to steer the vehicle into the center of the military formation. But soon after, he lost control, swerving out of the protective formation and throwing the entire vehicle into chaos. What's going on? Lin Miaoshan instantly noticed the anomaly. Was the ambulance under attack? And it broke formation? It could crash at any moment. Squad 1, Squad 2. Protect the ambulance immediately. He quickly barked orders over the radio. But this was incredibly difficult. The soldiers' biggest fear was accidentally shooting the ambulance. Because the vehicle was only reinforced with steel, while their firepower was way too strong. One mistake would be irreversible. Right then, an engine roared. My minibus charged forward at high speed. I stood in the command room, my rifle aimed straight at the ambulance. The tiny zombie continuously swung the fire axe, leaving multiple dents all over the vehicle's body. Inside, Wang Jianlang was strapped to the bed, clearly feeling every heavy impact. The side panel next to him was already deformed. The soldier driving was going half mad. He was driving at top speed, yet the vehicle was still being relentlessly attacked. Looking around, he couldn't see the tiny zombie anywhere. Suddenly, he felt like someone was staring at him from the side. When he turned his head, he met the face of a pretty little girl with purple-red eyes, pressed against the glass, staring intently at him. A gunshot rang out. The tiny zombie vanished, but the window shattered completely. Fall back now. Rin Shiyu's voice echoed in everyone's minds. That voice was like a bucket of cold water, snapping everyone back to their senses. We are the Shuriying Squad. Fall back toward us. The Shuriying Squad? It's Jiang Lushi. Li Yusin breathed a sigh of relief. her hands gripping the side of the vehicle tightly. Her face was still pale, but her mind had steadied. The soldier driving also understood that if this kept up, they would all die. He decided to take a gamble and trust the scurrying squad. He immediately yanked the steering wheel, driving the ambulance straight toward my minibus. In a split second, a loud crash rang out. The glass shattered, and warm blood trickled down the soldier's cheek. He saw the muzzle flash from my rifle right in front of his eyes, but the bullet didn't hit him at all. Even facing the line between life and death, he gripped the steering wheel tightly, his mind completely blank. There was only one goal left, the minibus and my rifle ahead. This time, whether they lived or died all depended on that bullet. This electrical net was unleashed by Jiang Zhuiying to protect the ambulance. And right at that moment, I pulled the trigger. But in that exact instant, Rin Xiu suddenly groaned. The little girl zombie's body instantly flashed. What a shame. I frowned, because I clearly saw her shoulder explode, blood splattering everywhere. But that shot didn't hit a fatal weak point. It couldn't kill her instantly. My eyes immediately tracked her, but the little girl zombie had already vanished into the horde, like a drop of water merging into the ocean. Even so, the power of a sniper bullet was not to be underestimated. Her shoulder blade was definitely shattered. Along the way, I had seen quite a few fresh corpses, mostly zombie remains, because they would slaughter each other too. Even if that little girl zombie escaped, being so heavily injured meant it would be hard for her to survive easily later on. This was the first time I had encountered such an eerie zombie. If I didn't have a sniper rifle in my hands, and wasn't in the minibus, but had to face her head-on, it would truly be a terrifying ordeal. In the ambulance, the soldier driving stiffened completely the moment he saw the little girl zombie appear again. He only dared to peek out of the corner of his eye, absolutely terrified to look straight at her. Not just him, everyone else in the vehicle had seen her too. That feeling was so horrifying it felt like everyone's hearts were being squeezed. But right then, hot blood from the shattered window splattered straight onto the soldier's face, making his body tremble. The electrical net was still sizzling. It was merely a brief second, but to everyone in the vehicle, it felt like time had stretched on endlessly. The spurting blood shattered that eerie atmosphere, dragging everyone back to reality. The soldier jolted and turned his head. The little girl zombie was gone. Only smeared bloodstains remained on the broken glass shards. Is she injured? Right then, my voice came through the walkie-talkie, stating that the mutated zombie was heavily wounded. There's no immediate danger, but to be safe, I'll approach and rendezvous with the ambulance. Wang Shishir seemed to snap out of her despair. She immediately rushed to the glass partition of the cab, banging on it, and screaming to quickly approach us. Watching the minibus continue to close in, with me in the combat room on the roof, an indescribable sense of closeness welled up in Wang Shishir's heart. Before, she had completely looked down on me, thinking I didn't know how to snipe and couldn't even compare to her brother. But now, I was the one who saved them. After escaping death, Wang Shishir was so overwhelmed with emotion she couldn't control herself. Hearing the words, "It's okay now," her tears flowed freely. Just moments ago, she thought she was going to die. Everyone in the vehicle, including her brother and Li Yusin, wouldn't survive. In that moment of despair, someone actually told them that it was okay now. That feeling of escaping death made her break down, and it also made her truly understand. This is the apocalypse. Death could strike at any moment. This is the end of the world. Even with military protection, you aren't necessarily safe. Wang Shishir turned to her brother, Wang Jianlang, excitedly telling him that the mutated zombie was injured and they were safe now. She didn't notice that Wang Jianlang's expression was incredibly complex right now, a mix of relief and sheer astonishment. Such a terrifying zombie was actually wounded by me. Earlier, just like his sister, he hadn't trusted me at all. But it was exactly that distrust that had put him in such a dangerous situation. He had even nearly dragged everyone in the ambulance down with him, including his own sister. As a soldier, failing to protect others was already a dereliction of duty, let alone almost getting them killed. It was all because of his prejudice and arrogance. Wang Jianlong's wound was still bleeding, the pain still throbbing. But that physical pain couldn't mask the regret in his heart. On the other end of the walkie-talkie, Lin Miaoshan was stunned for a moment when he heard my voice. When he saw the minibus rushing toward the ambulance, he hadn't thought we could actually save them, so he continued ordering the troops to deploy for a rescue. But right after the order was given, my small squad and I had already neutralized the threat, so fast that they hadn't even processed what just happened. Rin Xiu gently rubbed her forehead, saying what just happened was really strange. I asked her what exactly went down. She said the mutated zombie's mental halo was extremely bizarre. She had suppressed it, but it suddenly fought back. However, she didn't think it was a mental ability. Willpower is also a part of the mind. After being suppressed, that mutated zombie sensed a life or death crisis, so it erupted in that split second. Just a zombie, yet it possessed such consciousness. This made Rin Xiu shudder, because these zombies were clearly not as simple as we thought. There were still too many unknowns. She worried whether it would come back. Jiang Zhuiying, on the other hand, coldly stated that if it returned, she would definitely kill it. I stayed silent, knowing full well that killing that mutated zombie wouldn't be easy at all. Even with Rin Xiu and I coordinating and using the ambulance as bait, we only managed to heavily wound it. The ambulance quickly regrouped with the minibus. Seeing everyone in the vehicle looking like they had just grabbed a lifeline, Wang Jianlang couldn't describe the emotions in his heart. Li Yusin breathed a sigh of relief, turning back and calmly ordering them to continue bandaging. The situation just now was too critical. Luckily, it was brief, so Wang Jianlang's wound hadn't lost too much blood. Otherwise, the blood loss alone would have been life-threatening. Another doctor in the vehicle said, while disinfecting the wound, that it was lucky the mutated zombie's throw was off. It only tore the flesh. The bone was unaffected. Truly a blessing in disguise. Li Yusin said softly, "Thank goodness for him." The convoy continued to push laboriously through the zombie horde, but without the threat of the mutated zombies. The most troublesome throwing zombies had retreated, and the rest gradually thinned out. By the time dusk fell, after a grueling journey, this village wasn't large. Right next to the village road was a wide grain-drying yard where the military temporarily set up camp. When a battalion deploys, they have to carry enough rations for 15 days. But fresh meat or rice that requires cooking over a fire was almost impossible to bring along. Moreover, cooking outdoors in the apocalypse was extremely dangerous. If the smell of food or the light of a fire attracted a massive zombie horde, they'd instantly be at a disadvantage. Therefore, most of the food consisted of compressed biscuits. Having some dried meat and vegetable powder was already considered pretty good. As for sleeping arrangements, it was even worse. Several hundred people couldn't possibly all sleep in the vehicles, so the military pitched a lot of tents. Due to limited space, the tents were packed so tightly together that from a distance, it just looked like a solid black patch. Military tents were already in short supply. During the emergency evacuation, even ammunition was lacking, so how could they bring enough tents? As a result, 3 people had to squeeze into one uncomfortably cramped tent. Although the village houses could be used as temporary shelters, it would be hard to rally the troops in case of an emergency. The self-built houses were too far apart. Being scattered like that made them easy targets for ambushes. The military couldn't accept that risk. The thin mats laid out on the grain-drying yard were hard and cold. Coupled with Jiangnan's humid climate, using a blanket was incredibly uncomfortable. Come nightfall, the swarms of mosquitoes flying around drove people absolutely crazy. I heard Wang Shishir and Li Yusin were assigned to share a tent with an older nurse. Wang Shishir stared at the cramped tent in shock. So small, so hard, so damp. How was anyone supposed to sleep in this? Initially, she thought that no matter what, she'd get to sleep in the ambulance. The bed might not be as comfortable as the single bed in her apartment, but at least it was clean and dry. She just had to endure it for one night. Who would have thought the daytime battle would result in so many casualties? Even her brother had to get out of the vehicle to give up his bed for the more critically injured. Under those circumstances, how could she possibly sleep in the ambulance? There wasn't even room on the floor. Even from a distance, I could hear her anxiously asking Li Yusin how they were going to sleep. She sized up the space in the tent while glancing at the slightly chubby middle-aged nurse, who seemed to take up more than half the area. She and Li Yusin would definitely have to sleep pressed tightly against each other. Wang Shishir herself had a fuller figure, not as slender as Li Yusin. Plus, she had suffered from claustrophobia since childhood. Just thinking about it made it hard to breathe. but sleeping outside the tent meant being eaten alive by mosquitoes. Following the army out here and having to endure such harsh conditions was obviously something she had never anticipated. Li Yusin was different. She was much calmer. She just shot Wang Shishir a look and told her to stop complaining. Tomorrow, there would still be many wounded needing care. They were already incredibly lucky not to be on the front lines, not having to bleed. She reminded Wang Shishir to look at those wounded soldiers, in so much pain they couldn't even sleep, not even knowing if they could hold on long enough to return to Zhonghai Safe Zone 1. Even during rest, the guards still had to take turns keeping watch. Having a tent to squeeze into for the night was already a blessing. After saying that, Li Yusin pulled Wang Shishir's hand, looking toward my vehicle parked not far away, and told her they should go over and say thanks. After all, I had saved her brother and all of them during the day. The least they could do was say thank you. I saw Wang Shishir blush slightly. She was clearly still prideful about doubting me earlier, and now she had to take the initiative to thank me. But in the end, she was still dragged along by Li Yusin. Right then, the minibus door opened. Wang Shishir looked up and saw Jiang Zhuiying sitting in the driver's seat. Seeing Zhuiying in her tight black leather outfit and smoking hot figure, I clearly saw Wang Shishir freeze, her eyes unable to hide her shock. She had always been confident in her own figure, but Zhuiying's body looked like it walked straight out of a comic book. Perky chest, a slender and toned waist, and perfectly visible abs with absolutely nothing to criticize. Her eyes were clearly thinking, so my driver was actually a girl? I smiled when I saw Li Yusin and told them to come in and sit. I always had a pretty good impression of her. Li Yusin immediately expressed her gratitude, bringing up what happened during the day, saying that if it weren't for me, they probably wouldn't be standing here right now. Her voice trailed off halfway, while Wang Shishir stood there dumbfounded, her eyes wide as she looked around, her mouth hanging open. I understood the feeling. From the outside, the minibus looked old and battered, but the inside was a completely different story. After using 18 energy crystals to upgrade the base vehicle, not only was the entire chassis swapped for level 1 armor, but the interior space was also expanded. Many amenities were added, including 2 triple bunk beds. The bottom bunk was close to the floor, and the top 2 were still very spacious. The beds were 1.2 meters wide, covered with thick fleece blankets. Just looking at them was comforting. Jiang Zhuiying was currently lounging lazily on the sofa, watching cartoons on her tablet, while Ren Xiu wore an apron, standing in the kitchen cooking. The induction cooker, rice cooker, and microwave were all running. The fragrant smell of rice from the cooker filled the vehicle. On the stove, mutated meat was sizzling in the pan, the aroma making mouths water uncontrollably. Next to it, there were even fresh vegetables. I clearly saw Wang Shishir's eyes glued to it. In Zhonghai Safe Zone 1 right now, fresh vegetables were a luxury. The meager arable land was mostly used for staple crops, and vegetables were hard to preserve. Even with a fridge, they wilted quickly. Only the base vehicle's storage space could solve this problem. When Ren Xiu opened the rice cooker, revealing the pure white grains, I saw Wang Shishir's eyes widen. As a foodie, she instantly recognized it as premium Thai jasmine rice or high-grade Northeast rice. Before the apocalypse, these types of rice were pricey but very common. But now, the main staples in the Zhonghai zone were high-yield potatoes and sweet potatoes. The tiny amount of rice available was mostly hybrid rice. High-yield hybrid rice was famous, sure, but before the apocalypse, few people ate it because it tasted terrible. I saw Wang Shishir unconsciously touch her pouch of compressed biscuits, the only food she had brought. Because in the apocalypse, there were no more packaged snacks. You couldn't just casually carry rice or flour around either. Compared to our food and accommodations, their situation was truly worlds apart. Thinking back to when she first met me, she had thought I was just a refugee from Zhonghai Zone 1. But looking at my current life, she was probably the one who looked more like a refugee. Have you eaten? I asked very naturally. Ever since we got Ren Xiu, the quality of the Shuriying squad's meals had definitely skyrocketed. She came from a wealthy merchant family, but her cooking skills had nothing to do with her background. It was purely out of passion and talent. In this regard, my sister was far behind. She was always so impulsive. One look and you knew she wasn't the type to patiently study culinary arts. Ren Xiu was different. During her time studying abroad, She took care of all her own meals, honing her skills in the process. Eat. Wang Shishir watched Ren Xiu scoop the rice, spoonful by spoonful. Golden fried meat steaming hot, with fresh, tender greens on the side. Her throat bobbed unconsciously as she swallowed her saliva. Is this all mutated beast meat? Li Yusin, despite having guessed it from the aroma, couldn't help but ask. I nodded, casually bringing out a large pot of braised meat. It was literally a massive pot. The fried meat was just one plate, but the braised meat filled the entire pot to the brim. Wang Shishir's eyes widened at the sight. She had eaten mutated beast meat before, but since it cost 10 times more than regular rations, she hadn't eaten much. Most of it was thanks to her brother. How could that compare to me, braising a whole pot of it like this? Fresh vegetables were even rarer. She knew very well that they were practically special supplies reserved for military commanders. Even with money, you couldn't necessarily buy them. You guys, can you even finish all this? Wang Shishir asked, stammering slightly. Before the apocalypse, she used to take pride in her jewelry and designer clothes. Her family was well off, so she had some savings. After the apocalypse, those things plummeted in value. Just a few food stamps could trade for a whole pile of them. It once made her feel like this was one of the few perks the apocalypse brought. She still remembered the first time she met me. She had been annoyed that her designer clothes got dirty due to the poor sanitary conditions in Zhonghai Zone 1. But now, standing before this pot of braised meat, brands like H&M or Chanel were truly no different from dirt. Of course we'll finish it. It's just easier to cook a lot of braised meat at once. Braising a big pot is simpler. Frying meat takes time, so it's just to switch up the flavor. Metahumans eat a lot. Just a few plates of fried meat aren't enough. The main course is still the braised meat, I said very calmly. Wang Shishir was completely speechless. She originally thought I cooked a lot to save for later. Who knew it was because, if we didn't eat this much, it wouldn't be enough. Comparing people really just leaves you choking on your words. Out there, in the apocalypse, even the villa districts had restricted electricity. The moment it got dark, the lights were cut. Only a few military leaders were supplied with power for lighting because they worked at night. But in my vehicle, the induction cooker, rice cooker, and microwave were all running freely. The rice cooker was even on keep warm mode, plugged in constantly. The tablet was charging nonstop. Both the induction cooker and the microwave consumed kilowatts of power. Running them for an hour burned a whole kilowatt hour, equivalent to lighting up 100 energy-saving bulbs at once. We've already eaten, Li Yusin spoke up to decline. I had just saved their lives during the day, and coming over to thank me at night only to sit down and eat such precious food. She really felt it was inappropriate. Hearing that, Wang Shishir looked visibly disappointed. She actually really wanted to eat. After a whole day of fighting and marching, she had barely put anything in her stomach. In the Zhonghai safe zone, her meals revolved around watery porridge, rice with pickled veggies, and sweet potatoes. And being from Jiangnan, she was used to eating rice. The high-yield hybrid rice was dry and crumbly, wouldn't stick together, and tasted terrible. But she also understood they were here to say thanks. They didn't bring any gifts, and now they were going to eat my food? Besides, honestly, I probably wouldn't even bat an eye at anything they had to offer. Aside from the temporary apartment that didn't even fully belong to her brother, her belongings probably weren't even worth one of our meals. Ren Xiu leaned in and whispered a few words in my ear, but honestly, I didn't need the reminder to tell that Li Yusin was lying. Just looking at Wang Shishir's eyes was enough. She was a bit vain, but her thoughts were very simple. I glanced at her and smiled. Even if you've eaten, you can always have a little more. Stay and eat. You guys won't eat that much anyway. There's plenty for everyone. With that, I sat down at the dining table first. Wang Shishir's face flushed bright red, as if I had seen right through her. She felt embarrassed and hot-faced, but the allure of the food made her unable to walk away. After all, she was a foodie at heart. Then, we'll impose on you. Li Yusin finally accepted. I smiled and added, before the apocalypse, I owed you 20,000 yuan. Paying you back in cash is meaningless now, so just consider this meal my repayment. You helped me out quite a bit back then anyway, I said, half joking. Hearing that, Li Yusin felt a warmth in her heart. She hadn't helped me that much, and it certainly couldn't compare to me saving her life today, but those words chased away the awkwardness and hesitation. Otherwise, Both she and Wang Shishir would feel like country bumpkins wandering into a grand palace. Not because they were poor, but because my lifestyle was beyond imagination, even surpassing many high-ranking officials in the Zhonghai zone. After the meal, Wang Shishir was so happy, she almost bit her own tongue. It had been so long since the apocalypse started, and today was the first time she had eaten a proper, decent meal. Before, it was all bland white rice. No meat, no fresh vegetables, no fruit. Rice with pickled veggies, then pickled veggies with rice. She ate it until her mouth tasted like nothing. Even Li Yusin ate more than usual. Although her family was allocated enough rations, meat was still a scarce commodity, especially since the military was buying up mutated beast meat to research evolution crystals. After eating, Jiang Zhuing yawned and went into the bathroom to run some water. When the door opened, Wang Shishir caught a glimpse of a corner of the bathroom. There was a folding bathtub, and above it hung a cylindrical device. It was clearly a water heater, and the indicator light was on. In my vehicle, you could even take a hot shower. After a day of fighting, covered in sweat and grime, the appeal of a hot shower to a girl goes without saying. But no matter how thick-skinned she was, Wang Shishir didn't dare ask to use it. Right then, the walkie-talkie on my table crackled. This is command. This is command. I am Lin Miaoshan. Mr. Jiang, if it's convenient, please come to the command post. Acknowledge if received. I wiped my mouth, figuring that after a tense day of fighting, command must be preparing the strategy for tomorrow. I told Zhuiying and Shiyu, then got ready to head out. Seeing this, Li Yusin and Wang Shishir also excused themselves and left the vehicle. Before stepping out, Wang Shishir cast one last glance at the steamy bathroom and the soft beds, thinking to herself that whichever girl married me would definitely be incredibly happy. Life on this vehicle was no worse than before the apocalypse. It's just a shame she didn't dare ask to stay the night. Thinking of that cramped little tent, she had no idea how she was going to sleep tonight. On the way to the command post, many soldiers saw me. The news from the day had spread. They knew I had shot the mutated zombie, reducing the number of special infected and throwing the ordinary horde into disarray. Without that shot, the convoy would have had a very hard time breaking through, and casualties would have definitely been much higher. The soldiers sitting around eating compressed biscuits immediately stood up and gave me a military salute when they saw me. That sight made Wang Shishir and Li Yusin, who were walking behind me, feel a bit bashful, as if they were sharing in that honor. I stepped into the temporary command post, which was really just a larger-than-usual tent. A few armored vehicles were parked next to it. In the center of the tent was a table spread with a map, illuminated by a few hanging flashlights. Lin Miaoshan stood in front of the map, laying out the plan. Beside him was a woman wearing a white lab coat. She wore gold-rimmed glasses, looked about 35 or 36, and had a very distinct intellectual aura. Seeing me arrive, Lin Miaoshan smiled and greeted me. After the daytime battle, his attitude toward me was clearly much more polite than before. Committee member Zhang's judgment really wasn't bad. He spared no praise for my shot earlier today. I cut him off, getting straight to the point. Lin Miaoshan laughed heartily, then introduced the woman beside him as Professor Sun, an expert in nuclear physics specializing in radiation science. I stepped forward and shook her hand. In the academic system, female professors in the natural sciences in their early 30s were indeed very rare. But in the field of radiation, there were quite a few female scientists, perhaps influenced by Marie Curie. Professor Sun told me straight up that we were only about 10 kilometers away from the radiation zone. The Qinshan nuclear power plant had experienced a small-scale nuclear leak. The safe radiation level for the human body is 0.1 curies, but the Qinshan area had already exceeded 500 curies. Just approaching it required wearing a hazmat suit. And since the number of hazmat suits was limited, starting tomorrow, aside from the tanks and armored vehicles that could block some of the radiation, only 40 people equipped with hazmat suits would participate in the operation. The rest could only stay behind to defend the camp. The Qinshan nuclear power plant was the first nuclear power plant independently designed and built by China. Its annual power output once reached 50 billion kilowatt-hours, making it the largest nuclear power plant in the country. Of course, that was all in the past. This place used to be the pride of China. Even if there were times when the technical level couldn't match foreign countries, as a state-owned enterprise, The safety of the Qinshan nuclear power plant was always beyond reproach. For over 10 consecutive years, there had never been a single unplanned shutdown, consistently topping the charts as one of the safest nuclear power plants in the world. In this regard, China had done much better than Japan's Fukushima nuclear power plant. It's just a pity that all of this was now history. Su Tong, wearing a bulky hazmat suit, stood looking through the glass at the gray building in the distance and sighed softly. There was a time when this place was the pride of Chinese scientists in the field of radiation. Yet now, it had become a scar on the land of Jiangnan. The outbreak happened too suddenly. Most of the plant staff were killed or injured. The cooling water system couldn't circulate, and the reactors continued to run, growing hotter and hotter. This led to a reaction between the metal in the fuel rods and the steam, generating a massive amount of hydrogen gas. Eventually, the hydrogen gas exploded, causing a nuclear fuel leak. Fortunately, the containment shell of the Qinshan nuclear power plant was sturdy enough, so the leak wasn't too severe. At least it wasn't as catastrophic as the Chernobyl disaster in Ukraine. Over 10 days ago, Su Tong and a team of technicians arrived at Qinshan and shut down all the reactors. However, right after completing the task, an incident occurred. An unknown monster suddenly ambushed the military, causing many soldiers to sacrifice their lives. The casualties were extremely heavy. Under the desperate protection of the soldiers, the scientists in the team were evacuated to a residential area far from the nuclear power plant. Currently, they were all taking shelter in the building furthest from the plant. They had been trapped here for nearly half a month. Half a month, if it were a carefree vacation, it would be nothing. But to Su Tong, that time felt as long as a year. Su Tong grew more haggard by the day. Before, she had a rosy complexion and kept herself in great shape. But now, through the hazmat suit's visor, you could clearly see her gaunt, exhausted face, looking as if she had aged 10 years. Thinking back to about 20 days ago, when she was still wearing her lab coat in the laboratory, teaching her daughter about microorganisms, that scene felt like it belonged to another world. Her daughter was her pride and joy. Even though their family was well off, the girl had been sensible since childhood, excelling in her studies and never giving her any reason to worry. It's just that right now, the thing making Su Tong the most anxious was her daughter. If she and her father couldn't make it back, could her daughter survive in that chaotic Zhonghai safe zone? If the military reclaimed their apartment and she had no stable place to live, her life would become unimaginable. In the chaotic slums, people whose humanity had been twisted by despair were capable of anything. If her daughter fell into their hands. Every time she thought of this, Su Tong's heart trembled. She had looked out the window in anticipation countless times, but rescue still hadn't arrived. She didn't know if the soldiers who broke through the siege, without their heavy equipment, had managed to reach the Zhonghai safe zone to deliver the message. She only knew that in recent days, a massive zombie wave had erupted in the Jiangnan area. It's time to eat. A soldier's voice called out from the door. Su Tong snapped out of her thoughts, grabbed a bowl, and stood up, saying to her father, "Dad, let me go get the food. You rest." Her father, Su Guangkai, was over 70. He should have retired long ago, but unable to sit idle, he accepted an invitation to return to work at Jinling University. This time, to study the mutated organisms around the nuclear power plant, he had personally accompanied the military here. If he had just listened to her earlier and stayed in the Zhonghai safe zone, Yusin wouldn't have been left home alone with no one to look after her. Yeah, Su Guangkai moved his lips slightly, then sighed. He had always been a tough man, but now even he couldn't hold on much longer. Wearing the airtight polymer hazmat suit for such a long time had caused his skin to ulcerate in many places, bringing excruciating pain. He gritted his teeth and endured it, not knowing how much longer these old bones could hold out, or if he would end up like that forgotten nuclear power plant, forever buried in this irradiated land. The soldier handing out the porridge was a young man, about 18 or 19, with a youthful face. There were only 5 soldiers standing guard here. "Sir, ma'am, I just finished cooking it. It's still hot, come have some." No matter the circumstances, no matter how desperate things got, this young soldier always started with such an enthusiastic tone, even though the porridge was actually very hard to swallow. This so-called porridge was just compressed biscuits boiled into a watery broth. A few days ago, there were still some sausage crumbs in it, But now it was just watery broth, getting thinner by the day. The water used was tap water left in the storage tanks from before the apocalypse. At least it wasn't irradiated. As for bacteria, no one had the mind to care anymore. Everyone lined up to receive their porridge, silent from start to finish. No pushing, no fighting. Sutong received a full bowl of watery porridge. Through the transparent visor of her hazmat suit, she saw the sunken eyes and gaunt face of the young soldier handing out the food, and suddenly felt the bowl in her hands grow heavier. Is Mr. Su doing all right? Make sure he drinks more porridge. I'll carry him down to the basement later, the young soldier said with a smile. Because they couldn't take off their masks to eat, for safety, they could only go down to the basement where the radiation level was the lowest, where the thick concrete walls could block most of the radiation. Yeah, Sutong just replied softly, her nose stinging. When people are pushed to the brink, they become fragile. Just a little bit of care is enough to bring tears to their eyes. On the desolate village road, the convoy moved steadily. The tanks flanked the sides, with the convoy in the middle. Because the small road couldn't bear the weight of the tanks, they could only roll along the shoulders. At the crack of dawn, the convoy had already broken camp and hit the road. Wang Shishir had visible dark circles under her eyes. She slept so poorly last night that her whole body ached, only managing to doze off around 4 or 5 in the morning. Yet, not long after she fell asleep, the loudspeaker blared the assembly order, demanding they pack up their tents in 5 minutes and board the vehicles to continue the journey. It was practically murder. Wang Shishir finally understood how the Red Army during the long march could fall asleep while walking. It had only been 1 day, and she couldn't take it anymore. If this dragged on for months, she'd definitely go insane. Li Yusin was just as exhausted, but both of them had to force themselves to stay awake because there were still many wounded needing care. After traveling another 10 kilometers, the army stopped to set up camp again. Ahead was the radiation zone. From here on out, the majority of the forces would stay behind. Only a small, lightly equipped team would push rapidly toward the Qinshan nuclear power plant to rescue the trapped survivors. Lin Miaoshan followed command protocol, distributing hazmat suits to the soldiers. The Shuriying squad, as an elite force, naturally participated. But due to the limited numbers, even Sun Quan and Zhang Hai were kept back at the camp. Right then, someone reported that a girl from the medical team was requesting to go into the radiation zone, saying she could tend to the wounded. Lin Miaoshan frowned, thinking the radiation zone was full of danger. What was a girl with no ability to defend herself going to do there? The reporter said the girl was insisting, claiming to be the daughter and granddaughter of 2 scientists trapped inside. I had just received my hazmat suit and spoke up. I know that girl. Let her come along. She can ride in my vehicle. Carrying medical supplies and a hazmat suit, Li Yusin stepped onto my minibus. Accompanying her was an experienced female doctor. Li Yusin sat down on the soft sofa, her face tense, clearly worried about her mother and grandfather she was about to reunite with at the Qinshan nuclear power plant. She was both hopeful and terrified of facing the worst possible outcome. Don't worry too much, a gentle voice rang out. Li Yusin snapped back to reality, turning to look at the long-haired girl sitting opposite her. It was Rin Shiyu. In this rescue mission, she would be a key asset. I noticed Li Yusin's eyes waver slightly. Perhaps since the meal yesterday, she had started getting curious about Ing and Rin Shiyu, wondering how 2 girls with such outstanding auras had met me and why they joined the Shuriying squad. Li Yusin nodded slightly, softly expressing her thanks, but her emotions were still in turmoil. This wasn't something that could be comforted with just a few words. I also noticed Rin Shiyu glancing at Li Yusin a few extra times. During the meal, Li Yusin had mentioned that before the apocalypse, she was my desk mate. But I knew that in Shiyu's eyes, she was probably wondering what kind of person the pre-apocalypse me actually was. Hello everyone. Thanks to Yusin, I was able to tag along this time. I'm Song Jiawen, the team's emergency doctor. The female doctor took the initiative to speak. After learning Li Yusin was joining the rescue team, Song Jiawen immediately requested to come along. If the scientists had severe health issues, or if there were casualties during the operation, they would need immediate medical attention. She was about 27 or 28, wearing a white lab coat over her military uniform. Her face was makeup-free, clearly showing signs of fatigue, but her demeanor remained very steady. Before the apocalypse, she was a military medic. I could clearly see in Li Yusin's eyes that she was both touched and worried, because if there were massive casualties, she definitely wouldn't be able to handle it alone. Song Jiawen smiled, taking the initiative to reach out and shake my hand, saying she had meant to thank me yesterday, as many people in the ambulance owed their lives to me. I shook her hand, replying politely that it wasn't my effort alone. Her hand was ice cold, enough for me to feel her hidden tension. Honestly, none of us were entirely relaxed. Even I was pouring all my focus into the upcoming mission. The combat formation quickly moved out. Wang Jianlang, his shoulder wrapped in thick bandages, sat in a vehicle watching the convoy leave. He was supposed to be one of the people participating in this crucial rescue mission, but now he was forced to stay behind. Committee member Chu Zhongshan had personally appointed him, but what was the result? I clearly saw his gaze darken. He took a deep breath, telling himself to stay away from factional disputes and just focus on improving his own strength. In the apocalypse, the most important thing, ultimately, was strength. Back at the camp, Wang Shishir stayed behind to care for the wounded. She had barely slept last night, and today she still had to manage a lot of injured people. But if you told her to go to the Qinshan nuclear power plant, she wouldn't dare. The apocalypse was too harsh. Even with military protection, it was hard for a girl to feel safe. This was the first time in her life Wang Shishir felt this exhausted. Just getting to close her eyes for 5 minutes would be pure bliss. I heard she even sighed, thinking about my vehicle, and even dreamed about it last night. The formation split from the main force, officially entering the radiation zone. From here on out, everyone wore hazmat suits. Otherwise, the risk of acute radiation sickness was extremely high. And with the current medical conditions, severe radiation sickness was practically a death sentence. Even though the hazmat suit was incredibly stuffy and uncomfortable, I still had to wear it fully. Grabbing my AK-47 and sniper rifle, I climbed up to the combat room. Jiang Zhuing set her tablet down, sat in the passenger seat, and hugged her long blade tightly. In the cabin, Li Yusin and Song Jiawen instantly felt the rising combat tension. The convoy advanced steadily. Small groups of zombies gradually appeared ahead. They weren't enough of a threat to the formation, but their appearance sent chills down people's spines. The zombies here had been exposed to radiation for a long time. Their flesh was red and ulcerated, but their ferocity had skyrocketed. Thud! A zombie slammed into my vehicle. The impact was clearly much stronger than a normal zombie's. I frowned. In this area, mutated zombies didn't need to slaughter each other. The radiation alone was enough to cause mutations. If all the zombies and monsters here were fully stimulated by the radiation, this place would become a forbidden zone for humanity. Fortunately, that hadn't happened yet. Otherwise, the price to enter this place would be utterly catastrophic. Attention! We are approaching the Qinshan nuclear power plant. Shuriing squad, get ready. Lin Miaoshan's voice rang out over the walkie-talkie. I glanced at Renshiyu. She immediately nodded, opening her mental domain, starting to guard against that mental-type monster. As the convoy neared the Qinshan nuclear power plant, the number of zombies ahead noticeably increased. On the roofs of the workers' dormitories, the guard forces always kept 2 teams on standby simultaneously to monitor and protect each other, guarding against the appearance of that mental-type monster. Just thinking about it was enough to make anyone shudder. That monster's mental range was limited. Thanks to strict surveillance, it didn't dare get too close, but it also left the people inside completely trapped. Right then, a soldier holding binoculars suddenly saw a group of people appear at the end of the road, behind the dense swarm of zombies. He practically jumped up, excitedly shouting that it was their people. Throughout the days of being besieged, hope had gradually dried up. And in that very moment, rescue had finally arrived. The news was quickly relayed over the radio, but even the soldier himself wasn't entirely sure if they could truly break the siege this time and get everyone out. In the pitch-black basement, the orange-yellow light from an old flashlight flickered around. This flashlight had been scavenged from a civilian house. The military flashlights had run out of batteries long ago. The so-called basement was actually only half submerged underground. There used to be a small skylight for natural light, but to isolate the radiation, that skylight had been completely sealed off. Su Guangkai sat on an old chair, breathing heavily, his trembling hands trying to take off his mask. To ensure an absolute seal, The mask of the radiation suit was extremely difficult to remove. "Let me help you, Dad." Su Tong hurried over. Even in this basement, the radiation level was only lower than outside, not zero. This kept her constantly on edge about her father's health. Radiation kills cells. It could be harmless cells, or it could be vital ones. If it destroys useful cells, or even causes DNA strand breaks, it can easily lead to cancer. Radiation is an invisible killer. Some people are exposed and turn out fine, while others contract terminal illnesses because of it. Every time she looked at her father's white hair, Su Tong's nose stung. Finally, Su Guangkai managed to take off the mask. Panting, he said casually, "We're just eating. What's there to be tense about? People say the Chernobyl exclusion zone will be uninhabitable for 20,000 years, yet people still go there for tourism. Some even live there until they're 80 or 90. After saying that, he drank half the bowl of watery porridge in his hands, then pushed the bowl back. "Dad, drink a little more," Su Tong couldn't help but say. But Su Guangkai was stubborn, silently putting his mask back on. Hunger and thirst were terrible torments. This hard-to-swallow porridge was already a luxury in their current situation. Right then, a loud bang rang out. The basement door was shoved open. Su Tong jumped, nearly spilling the porridge, and quickly steadied it. The person who rushed in was the young soldier who usually handed out the porridge, now so excited he was practically jumping up and down. "They're here. They're here," he stammered. "Who's here?" Su Tong asked reflexively, a possibility she didn't dare believe flashing in her mind. "Our troops are here. Armored vehicles are coming in from the plant." Hearing that, Su Tong burst into tears. The despair of waiting for so long was finally relieved. The fear of death and the pent-up worry for her daughter over the past days made her unable to hold back her tears. "Mr. Su, let me carry you." The skinny young soldier hoisted Su Guangkai onto his back and rushed up the stairs. Su Tong hurriedly followed. When they stepped out of the building, sporadic gunfire was already ringing out. That deafening sound was now strangely comforting. Looking through the window, Su Tong saw the military convoy appear under the gray sky. The armored vehicles were covered in dust, but those massive blocks of steel brought an unprecedented sense of security. Amidst the array of tanks and armored vehicles, there was a minibus that looked incredibly out of place, so fragile that it immediately caught one's attention. This vehicle, Su Tong froze. But right after, she saw the gray horde of zombies crashing toward the convoy. The zombies in the radiation zone were far more terrifying than normal. Many had ulcerated skin, yet grew sharp fangs and claws. Su Tong had seen their claws with her own eyes, strong enough to tear through steel plating. For the past few days, they hadn't dared make a single sound for fear of attracting these zombies. Security doors were completely useless against them. As a biologist, Su Tong had managed to make some preliminary judgments. She believed that radiation didn't directly create the zombies and mutated monsters, but rather, the radiation had mutated the supervirus that caused the apocalypse. This was a new type of virus with a structure containing both DNA and RNA. The DNA strand was unusually long, making it highly prone to errors during replication and transcription. In a radioactive environment, the probability of mutation was even higher. With the DNA structure broken, no one knew how many new variants would be born. Right now, the machine guns on the armored vehicles opened fire. Every shot from the 25mm autocannons was enough to tear a human body apart, but the zombies' bodies were shockingly tough. Some continued to charge even after taking a hit. Having their limbs shot off didn't seem to deter them. They climbed onto the roofs of armored vehicles, scaled the tanks, and even threw themselves straight into the treads, getting crushed into minced meat. The bloody scene was so gruesome that even Su Tong, who was used to dissecting animals, felt nauseous. Zombie claws could tear steel, but against the armor of tanks and armored vehicles, they were completely powerless. Only that minibus. Su Tong couldn't help but worry. She saw zombies frantically lunging at the minibus, scratching at the metal plating, smashing straight into the windows. Glass that should have shattered with a single blow didn't budge at all under the relentless assault. "Does this minibus have bulletproof glass?" a soldier nearby exclaimed. Su Tong shook her head. It wasn't ordinary bulletproof glass. Even bulletproof glass would crack under heavy impact. It just wouldn't shatter. What on earth was this glass? She truly couldn't understand. In her knowledge, bulletproof glass could hardly reach that level. Compared to the armored vehicles firing continuously, the minibus didn't shoot. It just quietly advanced with the formation. On its roof was a hemispherical metal block that looked incredibly high-tech, but it didn't resemble any radar or signal transmitter Su Tong had ever seen. She wasn't sure what this modified minibus was actually for, but the fact that it could plow through a zombie horde without a single scratch from its tires to its windows was proof enough. Modifying this vehicle must have been incredibly difficult. Perhaps this was the transport dispatched specifically to pick up frail scientists like them.